Welcome, daring explorers, to Utah, land of rugged mountains, sweeping canyons, and a deep mining history that conceals more than precious minerals. Beneath the surface of these mines lie stories of greed, tragedy, and death. Yet in Utah, many mines are not merely abandoned, they are haunted by the spirits of miners, prospectors, and those who never emerged from the darkness. Mines are places of work and discovery, but also of danger and despair. Visitors report shadowy figures moving in the tunnels, unexplained lights deep in the shafts, and ghostly voices echoing off the stone walls. Some claim to hear pickaxes striking invisible rock, whispers guiding or warning them, and the sensation of unseen hands brushing their shoulders. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted mines in Utah that hide ancient secrets, from small abandoned shafts to sprawling mining complexes, each with stories of ghostly activity, tragic deaths, and inexplicable phenomena. Some hauntings are documented, others whispered among locals, but all share one chilling truth. In these mines, the past never stays buried. Keep your lantern close, your senses sharp, and your courage steady, because tonight, Utah's haunted mines are waiting. The Tintic Mining District in Webb County, Utah, is a place where history and legend collide, leaving a lingering sense of unease that stretches across its abandoned shafts and crumbling structures. Once a bustling hub of mining activity during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Tintic attracted miners and prospectors seeking fortune in the rich veins of silver, gold, and other minerals hidden beneath the rugged terrain. Today, the district stands largely deserted, a ghost of its former self. Yet those who venture here often speak of encounters that defy explanation. Walking through Tintic, the first thing that strikes most visitors is the oppressive silence. The usual sounds of lifebirds, wind through trees, distant traffic seem muted, as if the land itself is holding its breath. Rusted machinery and the skeletal remains of mining buildings scatter across the landscape, some half buried in dust and debris. Weathered signs and broken equipment tell the story of an industry that once thrived but ultimately succumbed to time, exhaustion, and tragedy. Local lore, however, suggests that the past never truly left. Many ghost hunters and thrill seekers report seeing shadowy figures in and around the abandoned shafts. These apparitions often resemble miners from the early 1900s, complete with wide-brimmed hats, dusty coats, and heavy boots. Witnesses describe the figures as moving deliberately, almost as if continuing work left unfinished a century ago. Some claim to hear the rhythmic sound of pickaxes striking rock, echoing through tunnels where no living hand wields a tool. Others feel sudden temperature drops or the prickling sensation of unseen eyes upon them, especially near old mining entrances. One of the more unsettling experiences occurs in the district's deeper shafts. These tunnels, now unsafe and partially collapsed, were once bustling veins of labor and danger. Visitors have reported strange lights flickering deep within these tunnels, sometimes a faint glow like lanterns, carried by unseen hands, other times sudden flashes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Paranormal investigators have tried to capture these lights on camera, but footage is often unclear, distorted, or inexplicably erased. Some theorize that the lights represent spirits of miners trapped in the mines, forever searching for a path to freedom, or perhaps residual energy from the labor and anguish endured underground. Accounts of auditory phenomena are equally chilling. Travelers speak of faint conversations drifting from empty buildings, the clatter of tools, and the creaking of machinery long rusted into silence. One frequent report involves the distant sound of a minecart rolling along tracks that no longer exist. These sounds, often described as distant yet distinct, seem to come from multiple points at once, creating an echoing chorus that leaves even the most skeptical observers unsettled. Some claim that, if you listen closely, the voices are not merely random echoes, they seem to warn, beckon, or even plead, though the language is impossible to decipher. The landscape itself contributes to the eerie ambience. Tintic surrounding hills and gullies cast long shadows at sunset, and fog can roll in quickly, swallowing landmarks and disorienting travelers. Hikers and explorers recount sudden patches of thick mist that appear without warning, sometimes accompanied by the feeling of being watched or followed. These fogs often conceal phantom shapes, moving just out of sight, figures glimpsed in the corner of the eye, disappearing when looked at directly. Local lore even suggests that some areas of the mines are cursed, where those who linger too long may encounter spirits intent on reenacting their tragic ends. Fatal accidents were common in Tintic during its heyday. Mine collapses, explosions, and other mishaps claimed the lives of dozens, and their stories have endured in whispers and warnings passed down through generations. It is said that these tragedies left a residue of grief and unrest, seeding the district with restless spirits. Some visitors insist that certain mine shafts are particularly active, with spectral miners retracing the steps that led to their deaths. One old story speaks of a young miner who fell during a shift change. Witnesses have reported seeing a small, shadowy figure walking along the edge of the shaft, then vanishing suddenly when approached. Others described fleeting glimpses of a miner frozen mid-swing, a ghostly pickaxe suspended in air, only to have it vanish moments later. The abandoned buildings also hold their share of apparitions. Former offices, bunkhouses, and equipment sheds are said to echo with the presence of the miners who once filled them. Some explorers report doors slamming shut on their own, the faint smell of smoke and coal lingering in the air, or the sensation of being brushed by invisible hands while walking through narrow hallways. Occasionally, personal items appear inexplicably displaced, as though someone or something has been there moments before. Photographs taken inside these buildings sometimes reveal shadowy forms, strange orbs, or distortions that seem to mimic human shapes. Despite the dangers, Tintic draws a steady stream of curious visitors. Ghost hunters, history enthusiasts, and adventurers alike are drawn to the district not only for its spectral legends but also for the glimpse it offers into Utah's mining past. Guided tours and unofficial explorations provide opportunities to experience the eerie atmosphere firsthand, though visitors are cautioned to respect safety hazards and the fragile historical structures. For many, the thrill lies not in danger alone, but in the sensation of stepping into a place where time has paused, and the line between the living and the dead is said to blur. Over time, Tintic has come to symbolize more than abandoned mines and forgotten towns. It represents the haunting persistence of history and memory. The spirits said to linger in its tunnels and buildings remind us that human labor, tragedy, and ambition leave marks that endure long after the miners themselves have gone. Whether these apparitions are the result of unsettled souls, residual energy, or the human mind's response to isolation and decay, the stories continue to captivate and chill those who dare to explore. Visitors leave Tintic with a mixture of awe and unease, carrying the echoes of pickaxes, the flicker of unseen lights, and the shadowed figures that seem to linger just beyond perception. The district stands as a testament to the power of history to shape not only the landscape, but also the imagination. And for those who wander its abandoned mines and ghostly halls, the past is never truly silent. In Tintic, the line between the living and the dead remains perilously thin, and those who enter may find that the miners of old are not quite done with their work. The McCool Gold Mine in Toole County, Utah, is a place where history and tragedy have left an indelible mark, creating an atmosphere that many describe as chilling and otherworldly. Once a thriving gold mining operation in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, McCool drew prospectors from across the West, all eager to stake their claim in the rich veins of precious metal beneath the rugged Utah terrain. Today, the mine lies abandoned, its shafts and tunnels silent. Yet visitors often speak of experiences that suggest the past is far from gone. Walking through the McCool Gold Mine, the first impression is one of isolation. The surrounding desert stretches for miles, dry and unyielding, leaving the crumbling remnants of the mining town and the mine itself as stark reminders of human ambition and loss. Rusted equipment, wooden beams weakened by time, and the skeletal remains of buildings all tell a story of industry and danger. But beyond the decay, there are stories of something more. something that lingers in the darkened tunnels and empty corridors. Many who explore Mercure report sudden drops in temperature, as if an invisible chill passes through the air. The most common reports describe shadowy figures appearing briefly, dressed in the work attire of miners from a century ago. These figures are usually fleeting, disappearing when approached, leaving only the echo of movement or a faint outline against the rough rock walls. Inside the mine's labyrinthine tunnels, the haunting becomes more pronounced. Footsteps are often heard in areas where no one else is present, their cadence steady and purposeful, as though miners are still making their way to work. Sometimes these sounds are accompanied by the distant clang of tools striking rock, a ghostly mimicry of labor long ceased. Visitors report feeling the vibrations of unseen activity, a sense that the mine is alive in ways that defy explanation. Some believe these manifestations are the spirits of miners who lost their lives in collapses, their work unfinished, their presence tethered to the mine forever. Disembodied voices are another phenomenon frequently described. Hikers, ghost hunters, and urban explorers recount hearing whispers and warnings that seem to drift through the tunnels. Words are rarely clear, but the tone often conveys urgency or caution. Some claim to hear miners warning them to leave, calling out advice about unstable tunnels or dangerous footing. Others have experienced conversations that seem to respond directly to their own questions or comments, though no one else is visible. These vocal manifestations leave a lasting impression, unnerving even those who enter with skepticism. The mine's surface is not immune to strange occurrences either. Abandoned buildings around Mercure show signs of subtle activity, doors that creak open or slam shut, windows rattling as though tapped from the inside, and the occasional glimpse of figures moving past broken panes. Even in broad daylight, visitors describe a feeling of unease, a sense that the area retains the memory of all who once labored there. Weathered mining carts and equipment seem almost staged, as if waiting for their owners to return, while the desert wind carries faint echoes of past life laughter, shouting the occasional cry of pain. The history of Mercure is marked by danger and tragedy. Cave-ins, fires, and mining accidents claimed numerous lives, leaving families and fellow miners to mourn in the shadows of the town. These events are often cited by those who experience paranormal activity as the root of the haunting. Stories tell of miners who perished in sudden collapses, trapped beneath rock and timber, their final moments likely filled with terror and despair. Locals believe that such intense suffering leaves an imprint, binding spirits to the site where they met their end. Several areas of the mine are especially noted for their paranormal activity. The lower tunnels, which are partially collapsed and largely inaccessible, are said to harbor the most intense manifestations. Visitors who venture near these sections often report a heightened sense of dread, sudden chills, and the feeling of invisible presences brushing past them. Some have seen full-bodied apparitions in miners' clothing, stooped figures carrying pickaxes or lanterns, moving methodically as if still performing their work despite the passage of decades. Occasionally, visitors claim to hear anguished cries or muffled voices echoing from deep within the mine, suggesting the lingering presence of miners who never escaped. For those willing to explore the ruins, the experience is both thrilling and unsettling. The mine draws ghost hunters, history enthusiasts, and photographers eager to capture evidence of the supernatural. Equipment for documenting paranormal activity, thermal cameras, EMF detectors, audio recorders is often employed, though results are mixed. Some investigators capture inexplicable anomalies, lights appearing in pitch-dark tunnels, shadows moving independently of their source, or distorted audio that seems to carry human speech. Others report subtle sensations, goosebumps, sudden fatigue, or the unmistakable feeling of being watched that defy capture by technology but leave an equally strong impression. Despite the danger and the fear, Mercure Gold Mine remains a destination for those drawn to the intersection of history and the supernatural. The mine's haunting is not just about fright. It is a testament to the lives of the men and women who worked there, the risks they took, and the tragedies that followed. Many who leave the site speak of a profound sense of respect for the past, combined with an enduring sense that the mine itself is alive with memory and spirit. Visiting Mercure Gold Mine is an experience that challenges perceptions of time, life, and death. The tunnels and abandoned structures serve as conduits to a past that refuses to be forgotten. Ghostly miners, chilling drafts, echoes of footsteps, and disembodied voices all contribute to a palpable atmosphere of unease. Whether one believes in spirits or not, the stories that emerge from Mercure are consistent, detailed, and unsettling, suggesting that this historic mining site retains more than just the remnants of gold. It retains the essence of those who gave their lives in pursuit of it. As visitors leave the mine, many report a lingering awareness, a feeling that the shadows of the past are following them beyond the gates. The Mercure Gold Mine stands as a monument to both human ambition and the hazards that accompany it. It's haunting, serving as a reminder that the echoes of tragedy never truly fade. The spirits of the miners may no longer wield pickaxes or speak aloud, but their presence endures, a silent testament to the perilous history embedded in Toole County's rugged landscape. Bingham Canyon Mine, located in Salt Lake County, Utah, is one of the largest open-pit mines in the world. A monumental scar etched into the mountainside that bears witness to decades of human labor, ambition, and tragedy. While the mine is renowned for its immense scale and mineral wealth, it has also earned a reputation among locals and paranormal enthusiasts as a place where the past never truly rests. Visitors often report strange phenomena, apparitions of miners, flickering lights, and the ghostly sounds of machinery still at work in areas long abandoned. Walking along the rim of Bingham Canyon Mine, the first impression is the overwhelming scale of the pit. Stretching more than 2.5 miles across and nearly 3/4 of a mile deep, the mine is a landscape of jagged terraces, rusting equipment, and winding access roads. The constant hum of modern machinery and occasional dump trucks can make it difficult to imagine the accidents that once occurred here. But those who explore less trafficked areas often sense a lingering presence. Many report that the air itself feels heavier, colder, or charged, as if the spirits of past miners remain tied to the site. The most commonly reported phenomena involve shadowy figures along the rim and terraces of the mine. Witnesses describe seeing men in old-fashioned mining attire, dusty clothing, hats, and boots, moving slowly or standing still at the edge of a terrace, only to vanish when approached. Some claim these figures are performing tasks long since abandoned, examining rock, operating tools, or signaling to unseen coworkers. Others have encountered more unsettling sights, like apparitions falling into the pit as though trapped in a loop of past accidents. These experiences leave a chilling impression, as though the mine itself preserves the memory of every worker who perished in its depths. Inside abandoned areas, phantom machinery is frequently reported. Old conveyors, loaders, and drills, long disconnected from power, are said to suddenly spring to life, their sounds echoing eerily through the cavernous spaces. Some explorers report hearing the clatter of shovels against rock or the metallic clang of a pick striking a vein, despite no one being present. Lights, too, behave strangely in these neglected zones. Lanterns or electrical fixtures flicker or glow unexpectedly, casting shadows that sometimes resemble human forms. Photographers and paranormal investigators occasionally capture orbs or distorted light anomalies on film, adding to the mine's reputation as a hotspot for spectral activity. Footsteps in empty areas are another recurring theme. Visitors often hear the rhythmic crunch of boots along gravel roads or the echo of steps climbing terraces, yet no one else is visible. Sometimes these sounds are accompanied by whispers, low murmurs, or even faint shouting. A common report describes the voices calling out warnings, advising those nearby to retreat from unstable ground or sudden drop-offs. Whether these auditory experiences are residual echoes of past events or actual conscious manifestations remains unknown. But they leave explorers on edge, aware of forces that seem to operate outside the realm of ordinary explanation. The mine's history offers context for these unsettling encounters. Over more than a century of operation, Bingham Canyon has been the site of numerous accidents, some fatal landslides, explosions, and equipment failures claimed the lives of dozens of miners, leaving their families mourning and the community shaken. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that such sudden, tragic deaths create energy that lingers in the locations where the events occur. In a place as vast and densely worked as Bingham Canyon, there are countless sites of potential unrest, from the pit's rim to abandoned buildings and forgotten tunnels. Certain areas of the mine are particularly known for paranormal activity. Along the upper terraces, some visitors report seeing apparitions standing at the edge, gazing down into the immense pit. Others claim to encounter flickering lights in abandoned office buildings, maintenance sheds, and storage areas where no power has flowed in decades. In these locations, it is common for explorers to feel sudden cold drafts, as though a door has been opened by an invisible hand, or to sense pressure, a heavy presence pressing against their bodies without physical contact. Many describe an oppressive feeling, a combination of awe and unease, as if the mine itself is watching and remembering. Even those who work at the operational sections of the mine have shared stories of strange phenomena. Night shift operators sometimes report equipment behaving unpredictably, lights blinking without cause, or hearing sounds that cannot be attributed to machinery. While these reports are less frequent than those in abandoned areas, they suggest that Bingham Canyon Mine's spectral activity is not limited to empty spaces, but may extend into areas still in use, a reminder that history and tragedy are woven into every layer of this massive excavation. Visitors drawn to Bingham Canyon Mine for its haunted reputation often approach with a mix of curiosity and caution. Paranormal investigators bring thermal cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recorders, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. Some report capturing unexplained anomalies, heat signatures in empty corridors, faint human shapes on camera, or audio recordings containing voices that cannot be explained. Others find the experience inescapably psychological, feeling watched or followed even without technological proof. Regardless of the evidence, the stories persist, shared in forums, blogs, and local lore. For many, the mine's haunting is more than mere fright. It is a connection to the past, to the lives of men who labored in dangerous conditions, who risked and sometimes lost their lives in pursuit of precious metals. The apparitions, lights, and sounds all serve as reminders of the hazards of mining and the sacrifices made to sustain a booming industry. Some visitors leave the site with a profound respect for those who came before, combined with the eerie sensation that the mine retains a consciousness of its own. Bingham Canyon Mine stands as both a technological marvel and a spectral landmark. Its immense terraces, crumbling buildings, and abandoned equipment are physical reminders of human ambition, but the stories of ghostly miners, flickering lights, and phantom machinery suggest that the emotional and spiritual imprint of the past remains. For those who wander its rim or explore its neglected structures, the line between history and the supernatural feels thin, and the presence of those who perished continues to make itself known in subtle, unsettling ways. In the end, Bingham Canyon Mine is more than a pit in the mountains. It is a place where the living and the dead intersect. Shadows linger along terraces, lights flicker in deserted rooms, and the echoes of footsteps and machinery remind visitors that history is never truly silent. The mine's massive scale, combined with the weight of its tragic past, creates an atmosphere where the spirit of the workers is said to endure, a haunting testament to the perils of human industry and the lingering power of memory. The Park City mines in Summit County, Utah, stand as silent witnesses to a bygone era of silver and gold, mining a time when the region thrived on the promise of fortune and the toil of miners who risked their lives in narrow shafts and steep hillsides. Today, the mines are largely abandoned, their trestles and tunnels left to decay. Yet those who visit often speak of experiences that suggest the past refuses to remain buried. From shadowy figures to ghostly sounds and sudden cold spots, the mines carry an eerie reputation that draws historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Visitors entering the old mining areas often first notice the trestles, weathered wooden structures that once supported or carts as they moved along the mountainsides. Even in the light of day, These trestles have a foreboding presence. People report seeing shadowy figures standing or walking along the planks, dressed in the dusty, worn clothing of miners from over a century ago. These figures are rarely static. They seem to move deliberately, pausing as if inspecting the tracks or signaling to unseen companions. Approaching them usually results in nothing but empty wood and wind. Yet the sense of having seen someone or something remains unsettlingly vivid. Inside the mine shafts themselves, the atmosphere becomes even more charged. Echoes carry unnaturally well through the narrow tunnels, and many visitors claim to hear ghostly voices that seem to call out from the darkness. Sometimes the voices are faint murmurs, almost imperceptible, while at other times they sound like miners warning of danger or shouting instructions. Explorers frequently report that these sounds appear to respond to their own movements, as if the tunnels remember the labor and life that once filled them. Footsteps, too, are a common occurrence, echoing along abandoned passages where no one else walks. The cadence of the steps often mirrors the rhythm of labor, the steady beat of boots moving across wooden floors or rocky ground, a spectral reminder of the tireless work once performed here. The faint sound of carts rolling on empty tracks is another phenomenon visitors often describe, even when no wind or movement exists to disturb the rusted rails. The low rumble of ore carts can be heard traveling along their ancient routes. Some claim that the sound rises and falls as if moving closer or farther away, and occasionally, the metallic clatter of chains or the scraping of wheels against wood accompanies the phantom carts. These auditory experiences leave a strong impression, as though the miners are still performing their duties, trapped in time by the very tunnels and trestles they once walked. Cold spots are frequently reported, a phenomenon that seems to defy the weather. On sunny summer days, visitors often feel sudden chills that send shivers through their bodies. These cold drafts are sometimes accompanied by the sensation of a presence brushing past them, though no one else is visible. Photographers and paranormal investigators have tried to capture these anomalies with thermal cameras, often recording unexplained drops in temperature or dark silhouettes in areas where no figures should exist. Whether these chills are evidence of lingering spirits or the natural movement of air through the old mine shafts, they contribute to an unsettling sense that the mines themselves are alive with memory. Local history provides a backdrop for these ghostly accounts. Park City's mining boom during the late 1800s and early 1900s was a period of rapid growth and considerable danger. Accidents were frequent. Mine collapses, falls from trestles, and cave-ins claimed the lives of dozens of workers. Families mourned their lost loved ones, and the community was shaped by both prosperity and tragedy. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that the intensity of these experiences, the sudden deaths, and the harsh conditions left residual energy in the mines, creating the haunting sensations reported today. Certain parts of the Park City mines are considered hotspots for paranormal activity. The upper trestles, in particular, are notorious for sightings of figures pausing or disappearing into thin air. Deeper shafts and tunnels, long abandoned and partially collapsed, often produce the strongest auditory phenomena. Visitors report voices that are intelligible, yet impossible to locate, footsteps that seem to follow them through winding corridors, and the occasional flicker of lantern-like lights that vanish when approached. Many explorers describe a feeling of unease or tension as they move through these areas, a sensation that something unseen is observing, guiding, or even warning them. Even those who have spent extensive time documenting the mines professionally speak of the subtle psychological impact. Extended periods in the tunnels can induce disorientation, heightened awareness, and a sense of presence that cannot be explained by the empty corridors alone. Cameras and recording devices occasionally capture anomalies, yet even without tangible evidence, the sheer scale of the trestles and tunnels, combined with the mine's tragic history, creates a setting where imagination and memory seem to converge with reality. For those drawn to the Park City mines, the experience is not solely about fear. It is also about connection to the miners who labored under harsh conditions, to the stories of ambition and loss, and to a landscape shaped by human hands and human tragedy. The shadowy figures, ghostly voices, and rolling cart sounds are reminders that history can linger in ways both tangible and intangible. Each cold draft or unexplained noise acts as a bridge to the past, a whisper from the miners whose lives were entwined with the mountainsides. Park City mines serve as a powerful reminder that the physical remnants of labor trestles, tunnels, and abandoned equipment carry more than material history. They also carry the echoes of those who worked, suffered, and sometimes died within them. Visitors leave with a mixture of awe and unease, aware that the mines are both monuments to human endeavor and vessels for memory, tragedy, and perhaps lingering spirits. Even in daylight, the mines hold a sense of watchfulness, the knowledge that the shadows may contain more than empty space. The faint sounds of carts rolling, the sudden chills, and the figures glimpsed on the old trestles suggest that the miner's presence endures, a spectral testament to lives lived and lost in pursuit of fortune. In Park City mines, history and the supernatural intertwine, leaving an indelible impression on those who venture into the echoes of a bygone era. The Iron King Mine in Toole County, Utah, stands as a relic of a bygone era, a place where human ambition collided with the dangers of mining, leaving a legacy of both industry and tragedy. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the mine was a hub of activity, drawing prospectors eager to extract valuable ores from the earth. Today, the mine is largely abandoned, its tunnels dark and silent. Yet those who venture inside often speak of experiences that suggest the past has never truly left. Ghostly miners, phantom sounds of labor, and inexplicable shadows combine to create an atmosphere that is as eerie as it is captivating. Visitors to the Iron King Mine often first notice the tunnels, narrow passages carved deep into the mountainside, lined with wooden beams that have begun to decay over time. These shafts were once alive with the sounds of hammers, pickaxes, and the footsteps of men who risked everything to extract ore from the rock. Now, the tunnels are silent, or at least they appear to be. Many explorers report hearing the unmistakable sound of pickaxes striking rock, echoing through empty corridors. The noise is rhythmic, deliberate, and often seems to come from multiple points at once, as if a team of miners is still at work somewhere deep within the mine. Approaching the source usually yields nothing, leaving only the eerie reverberation bouncing off the stone walls. Whispers are another common phenomenon reported inside the Iron King Mine. These are not the wind or the natural echo of footsteps, but distinct voices, sometimes faint and other times almost urgent, as if warning visitors of unseen dangers. Explorers have described hearing words like careful or stop, as though the spirits of miners who perished within the shafts are attempting to prevent others from meeting a similar fate. These warnings often coincide with areas that are structurally unstable or littered with debris, adding a chilling layer of reality to the supernatural experience. Shadowy forms are frequently seen near tunnel entrances or along the main corridors. Visitors describe figures that appear human but lack detail, often clothed in the dusty, worn garb of miners from the turn of the century. These apparitions move deliberately, sometimes carrying invisible tools or gesturing toward areas deeper in the mine. The figures often vanish as suddenly as they appear, leaving a faint sense of presence lingering in the air. Some explorers report seeing them reflected in puddles of water or in the faint glimmer of light on rusted metal, only for the image to disappear when directly observed. The history of Iron King Mine offers context for these unsettling experiences. Mining accidents were common during the height of operations. Collapses, equipment failures, and falls claimed the lives of many men, and the harsh conditions meant that death often came suddenly. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that such traumatic events leave residual energy, imprinting the site with the presence of those who suffered and died. In a place as intricate and shadowed as Iron King, with its narrow shafts and steep declines, it is easy to imagine spirits lingering in areas where the boundary between life and death was thin. Explorers also report sensory phenomena beyond sight and sound. Sudden cold spots are frequently felt in certain tunnels, often in locations where no airflow should exist. These chilling pockets of air are accompanied by a feeling of being watched, or sometimes even brushed by an unseen presence. The combination of temperature shifts, phantom sounds, and visual anomalies contributes to a pervasive sense that the mind is alive with memory and energy, a place where the past continually intrudes on the present. The mind's abandoned equipment and decaying infrastructure also seem to participate in the haunting. Rusted carts, old rails, and fractured beams occasionally move or appear displaced, as if someone or something has interacted with them. Explorers have captured photographs showing blurred figures, streaks of light, or shadows that do not align with any visible source. Even without photographic evidence, the experiences reported consistently suggest that Iron King Mine is more than just a forgotten industrial site. It is a space where the echoes of human labor and tragedy linger in tangible ways. Certain tunnels are considered especially active. Areas that suffered structural collapses in the past are often where visitors report the most pronounced phenomena, including repeated sightings of shadowy miners, persistent whispers, and the echo of pickaxes striking invisible rock. These zones are usually avoided by casual hikers, but draw the attention of paranormal investigators seeking to document unexplained activity. Many claim that these particular tunnels are hotspots, locations where the energy of past events is concentrated, producing the strongest manifestations. For those who explore the Iron King Mine, the experience is a combination of awe, fear, and respect. The mine offers a glimpse into the dangerous world of historic mining, where every step carried risk and every moment could be fatal. The ghostly miners, unseen but perceptible, serve as reminders of the men who once toiled here, their presence lingering in the very walls, tunnels, and beams they once inhabited. The whispers, cold drafts, and shadowy forms are not merely frightening, they are echoes of human endeavor, persistence, and ultimately, human vulnerability. Visitors often leave the mine with a lasting impression, a sense that the history of the place is not confined to books or rusting artifacts, but actively inhabits the space itself. The Iron King Mine stands as a monument to ambition, labor, and loss, where the line between the living and the dead seems thin and permeable. Ghostly miners, pickaxes, striking unseen rock, and voices calling warnings serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone, and that some places retain the memory of those who labored and suffered within them long after the last cart has rolled and the lights have faded. The haunting of Iron King Mine endures because the stories are consistent, the encounters tangible, and the sense of presence undeniable. In the quiet, shadowed corridors, the spectral miners appear, the pickaxes strike, and the whispers warn, leaving visitors with a profound respect for the dangers of mining and the lingering imprint of lives devoted to a hazardous, fleeting fortune. The Iron King Mine is more than a relic of industry, is a landscape imbued with memory, energy, and the enduring presence of those who never left. The Horn Silver Mine in Frisco, Utah, is a relic of the state's storied mining past, an abandoned site where the allure of silver once drew countless men into its depths. Today, the mine lies silent and decayed, yet those who explore its tunnels and crumbling structures often speak of experiences that suggest the past is far from gone. From shadowy figures in old mining garb to the inexplicable clanging of tools and the sensation of unseen hands, Horn Silver Mine has earned a reputation as one of Utah's most haunted mining locations. Walking near the entrance, visitors immediately notice the decay that has claimed much of the mine's infrastructure. Rusted carts sit on warped rails, support beams sag beneath the weight of time, and the crumbling rock face gives way to dark tunnels that descend into the mountain. Even in daylight, there is a sense of foreboding. Many who linger near the mouth of the mine describe sudden chills that sweep through the air, a coldness that seems to come from nowhere. Some feel the sensation of being brushed or tugged by unseen hands, light at first but insistent, as if something is attempting to make its presence known. Inside the tunnels, the atmosphere intensifies. Shadows cling to the walls, twisting and stretching with each flicker of light. Visitors often report seeing figures moving through the darkness, men in dusty coats, wide-brimmed hats, and boots, reminiscent of miners from over a century ago. These apparitions rarely remain long enough to be approached. They pause, turn, and vanish into the darkness, leaving an unsettling awareness of eyes watching from unseen corners. Many explorers describe the feeling of being followed, hearing faint footsteps echoing behind them, only to find no one there. One of the most persistent phenomena reported at Horn Silver Mine is the sound of tools clanging without cause. Visitors often hear the metallic strike of pickaxes against rock, the rhythmic tapping of hammers, and the distant roll of ore carts along rails that are now warped or broken. The noises are sharp and precise, echoing through the tunnels in ways that make them seem close, yet impossible to locate. Some report that the sounds grow louder or more frequent in areas where historical records indicate collapses or mining accidents occurred, suggesting a connection between the mine's tragic past and its present activity. Whispers are another common occurrence. Unlike the echo of footsteps or the clatter of tools, these voices are often distinct, carrying a tone of urgency or warning. Explorers have reported hearing miners advising them to proceed with caution, to watch their step, or to retreat from certain passages entirely. At times, the voices seem to interact with visitors, responding to questions or echoing statements, as if engaging in an unseen dialogue. These experiences leave a lasting impression, creating a sense that the mine is more than a physical location. It is a repository of memory and unresolved energy. The history of Horn Silver Mine provides context for these reports. During the height of operations in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the mine was the site of numerous accidents. Collapses and cave-ins claimed the lives of many workers, often leaving them trapped beneath tons of rock. Equipment failures and hazardous conditions made daily labor perilous, and the mountain's shifting geology added an unpredictable danger. Local lore suggests that the spirits of those lost in these incidents have never fully departed, continuing to move through the tunnels they once walked and performing tasks left unfinished at the moment of their death. Visitors also note unusual physical sensations that cannot be explained by drafts or temperature changes alone. Sudden chills in confined spaces are common, even on warm days, often accompanied by a sense of weight or pressure on the shoulders or back. Some have felt what they describe as light tugs on their clothing or hair, almost as if invisible hands are reaching out to them. These experiences are frequently reported near areas known to have suffered structural failures, reinforcing the connection between the mine's history and the paranormal phenomena that persist today. Light behaves strangely inside the tunnels as well. Shadows shift independently of sources, and some visitors have seen flickers or glimmers of what appears to be lantern light, suspended in mid-air. Photographers occasionally capture anomalies, blurred figures, streaks of illumination, or shapes that vanish upon closer inspection. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences creates a layered, immersive sense of the supernatural that makes Horn Silver Mine a magnet for paranormal enthusiasts and curious adventurers alike. Despite the chilling encounters, many who visit speak of a profound respect for the place. The ghostly figures and unexplained phenomena serve as reminders of the human effort, risk, and tragedy inherent in mining life. Those who enter the tunnels are often struck by the realization that each clanging pickaxe and whispered warning may be tied to real lives once lived and lost. For some, the experience is a form of connection, a fleeting chance to witness echoes of a past that shaped the region and the people who worked within its mountains. Certain sections of the mine are considered particularly active. Collapsed tunnels, deep shafts, and areas around old equipment are hotspots where shadowy figures are most often seen and auditory phenomena most frequently reported. Some explorers avoid these zones due to both the physical danger and the intensity of the haunting. Paranormal investigators, however, are drawn to these areas in hopes of capturing evidence, whether through audio recordings, thermal imaging, or photography. Many leave with recordings that contain unexplained sounds or images that defy logical explanation, reinforcing the mine's reputation for spectral activity. The Horn Silver Mine is a place where history, tragedy, and the unexplained converge. The ghostly miners, phantom pickaxes, whispered warnings, and unseen hands create an environment that is as haunting as it is fascinating. Whether the experiences are manifestations of spirits, residual energy, or the mind's response to isolation and decay, they leave visitors with a lasting impression. Those who venture into the tunnels often emerge changed, acutely aware of the perilous lives that were once lived there and the persistent presence that seems to linger long after the work is done. Horn Silver Mine remains a compelling sight for those drawn to history and the supernatural. The echoes of miners long gone seen, heard, and felt serve as a powerful reminder that the past is never truly gone. In the twisting tunnels and decaying structures, the spirits of workers lost in early collapses may continue their eternal labor, ensuring that Horn Silver Mine is not merely a relic of industry, but a living monument to memory, tragedy, and the unexplained forces that sometimes linger where human life once struggled against the rock. Deep in the rugged hills of Washington County lies the forgotten Grafton Mining District, a place that once echoed with the sounds of picks striking rock carts creaking along narrow tracks, and men shouting over the roar of blasting powder. Today, the mines are silent, the entrances sealed or collapsing, and the town that supported them has long since faded into dust. Yet those who venture into the area after dark claim the silence is deceptive. Strange lights flicker deep in the abandoned shafts. Shadowy figures move with lanterns that emit no heat, and faint voices drift through the wind as if the miners who once toiled there have never truly left. The landscape itself feels haunted even before the stories begin. Crumbling structures lean against the earth, and rusted tools lie half buried in the sand. The desert air carries a strange chill, one that grows sharper as evening falls. Explorers who visit often describe an unnatural stillness, broken only by the occasional clatter of loose rock or the whisper of wind through broken timbers. Yet at times, there are sounds that cannot be explained by nature alone. Distant footsteps echoing in tunnels long sealed, the faint clink of metal against stone, and murmured voices that vanish when approached. Local legend says the Grafton mines were cursed from the beginning. Founded during Utah's mining boom in the late 1800s, the district drew hundreds of hopeful men searching for silver and copper. But the mountain was treacherous. Shifting rock formations, flooding, and gas leaks made the mines unstable. Over the years, dozens of miners lost their lives in accidents that seemed to come without warning. Collapses, explosions, and suffocation in oxygen-starved tunnels. Survivors told of hearing strange noises before each disaster, whispers, echoing footsteps, and the distant glow of lights when no men were working. It is these same lights that modern visitors still report. Late at night, explorers describe seeing dim, wavering lanterns deep in the mine, entrances lights that move slowly as if carried by unseen hands. Some have tried to follow them, only to find that the glow retreats further into the darkness, always just out of reach. When they turn back, the air feels colder, and many report hearing the faint scrape of boots behind them, echoing in perfect rhythm with their own steps. A former park ranger who once patrolled the area described his experience near one of the collapsed shafts. He said he had been walking the perimeter at dusk when he noticed a flicker of yellow light deep within. Assuming it was trespassers, he approached the entrance. As he drew closer, the light seemed to grow brighter, and he could hear what sounded like men's voices speaking softly, perhaps giving instructions. But when he called out, the voices stopped abruptly. The light blinked once, twice, then vanished completely, leaving him in total darkness. When he turned to leave, he felt a rush of icy air pour from the mine's mouth, so cold that his breath froze before him, despite the summer heat. Temperature drops are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Grafton. Even on warm, dry nights, visitors have described sudden pockets of freezing air, so intense they cause visible frost on metal or stone. Paranormal investigators believe these temperature changes mark the presence of energy shifts, possibly connected to spirits lingering in the tunnels. Skeptics argue that the mine's structure may create drafts or trapped air currents. Yet those who have experienced it firsthand insist the cold is accompanied by something far less explainable, a sense of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow every step. Some explorers claim to have seen full apparitions, They describe figures dressed in old miners' clothing, complete with hats and lamps, walking silently along the edges of the tunnels or appearing on the slopes above the old town site. The figures often vanish if approached, fading like mist into the earth. Photographs taken in the area occasionally reveal strange shapes, outlines of people where none were present, glowing orbs floating near sealed entrances, or faces reflected in broken glass. One chilling story comes from two amateur historians who visited Grafton in the early 2000s. They were documenting the remains of the district when they decided to camp near an old shaft. Around midnight, they were awakened by what sounded like the rhythmic pounding of metal against stone. When they stepped outside, they saw faint lights moving along the ridge, spaced evenly apart, like lanterns carried by a team of miners. The lights made their way toward the mine, disappearing one by one into the entrance. Moments later, the sound of voices rose soft, weary, and indistinct. The pair listened in silence until the noises faded. By morning, they found fresh impressions in the dust that looked like boot prints, though the ground had been undisturbed before they slept. Locals who live near the old district have their own beliefs. Some think the spirits are simply restless workers, bound to the mine by the tragedies that ended their lives. Others believe the mountain itself holds an ancient energy, one that feeds on the suffering and toil that took place beneath its surface. A few even warn that the lights are not spirits at all, but allure phantom beacons meant to draw the living deeper into the earth, never to return. Attempts to reopen portions of the Grafton mines have always failed. Equipment malfunctions, unexplained accidents, and sudden collapses have plagued every effort. Workers have refused to continue after witnessing glowing figures in the tunnels or hearing whispers that seem to come from the rock itself. One foreman reportedly quit after a voice called his name from behind him in an empty corridor, repeating the word "leave" over and over until he fled. Despite the danger, the Grafton mining district attracts ghost hunters and thrill seekers year after year. They come armed with cameras, recorders, and temperature sensors, hoping to capture proof of the paranormal. Many leave with stories, instead devices malfunctioning near certain shafts. Recordings filled with faint voices saying words like "help" or "down here," and sudden bursts of static that sound eerily like breathing. Whether the hauntings are real or the product of imagination, one thing is certain: the Grafton mines feel alive. The echoes of labor, the chill in the air, and the flickering of ghostly lanterns all weave together into a tapestry of lingering sorrow. It is a place where time feels suspended, where the past continues to replay itself in fragments of sound and light. Those who visit often describe a final moment before living a sensation of being followed to the edge of the property, as though unseen figures walk beside them until they cross a boundary only the spirits understand. Once beyond it, the chill fades, the air stills, and silence returns. But in that silence, one thought lingers. The miners of Grafton are still down there, their lights forever burning in the dark, guiding the lost and warning the living to tread carefully in a place where history refuses to rest. The old copper mine in Toole County stands as a silent monument to Utah's industrial past, a place where ambition met tragedy deep beneath the earth. Once alive with the clamor of picks, drills, and the steady rumble of machinery, it now lies in ruin. Rusted rails vanish into collapsed shafts, and the wind whistles through broken beams like a dirge for the men who never made it out. Yet according to countless witnesses, the mine is far from empty. Visitors report the clanking of phantom machinery, shadowy miners still walking their eternal shifts, and whispers that echo through the chambers like memories unwilling to fade. The mine's history is as dark as the tunnels themselves. Opened in the late 19th century during Utah's copper boom, it promised wealth for those daring enough to descend into its depths. But mining was perilous. Collapses, gas leaks, and flooding took many lives, often without warning. Newspaper clippings from the era tell of cave-ins that buried entire crews, their bodies never recovered. It is said that when the last shaft was sealed, the spirits of those miners remained, bound to the tunnels that claimed them. Modern explorers and ghost hunters who venture near the site often speak of an unnatural silence that precedes the first signs of activity. The air grows heavy, and the usual sounds of nature, the rustle of wind, the call of birds fade into nothing. Then comes the faint rumble of machinery, the rhythmic grind of gears, and the metallic clang of ore carts rolling along invisible tracks. The sounds are unmistakable but have no physical source. Investigators have left recording devices inside the main chamber only to capture long stretches of mechanical noise where no human could possibly have entered. Some who dare to go deeper report an even stranger phenomenon, the sight of ghostly miners walking through the tunnels. They appear as misty figures in outdated work clothes, their faces obscured by shadow or dust. Witnesses say these apparitions move with purpose, carrying tools or pushing carts that emit no sound. They do not acknowledge the living, nor do they seem aware of being seen. One visitor claimed that as he stood near a collapsed shaft, he saw a man emerge from the darkness holding a lantern. The figure paused, lifted the light toward him, and then simply vanished, leaving the faint smell of smoke in the air. There is also a chilling sense of physical presence within the mine. Many explorers have described the feeling of being touched or brushed by unseen hands. A sudden tap on the shoulder, the sensation of fingers grazing the back of the neck, or the weight of something unseen pressing against their arm. One woman, part of a paranormal research group, recalled how her jacket was tugged twice while standing near a rusted winch. She turned to find herself alone, her team several feet away, each looking as startled as she was. Whispers are perhaps the most unnerving part of the old copper mines legend. Deep inside the tunnels, voices echo faintly soft, indistinct, and overlapping. Sometimes they sound like conversations, fragments of words carried through the air. Other times, they take on a pleading tone, as if the spirits are warning intruders of unseen dangers. A few witnesses have claimed to hear their own names called in the darkness. One miner's descendant, who visited to pay respects, said he heard the word "run" whispered just behind him, followed by a gust of freezing air. When he turned, the passage was empty. The temperature inside the mine fluctuates unpredictably. Even on warm summer nights, explorers describe sudden drops that leave frost forming on metal surfaces. Paranormal researchers believe these cold spots are tied to areas where deaths occurred. The largest temperature changes often happen near the lowest accessible chambers, where historical records indicate multiple cave-ins took place. It's here that reports of ghostly machinery are most intense, the grinding of drills, the creak of hoists, and the hollow ring of tools striking stone. These sounds seem to replay endlessly, as if the mine itself is looping through moments of its tragic past. The old copper mine's isolation adds to its eerie atmosphere. Nestled in a remote corner of Toole County, surrounded by sagebrush and the skeletal remains of workers' cabins, it feels frozen in time. Visitors who camp nearby have reported waking to the faint glow of lantern light moving across the hillsides. Some have followed these lights, believing them to be fellow explorers, only to watch them disappear at the mine's entrance. Others claim to have heard the distant hum of engines, though the nearest active road is miles away. A former security guard once shared a story that has become part of the mine's lore. While patrolling the area one evening, he heard the unmistakable sound of a generator humming underground. Thinking someone had broken in, he approached the main tunnel. As he entered, the noise grew louder, joined by the clatter of chains and the rhythmic thud of a drill. Then, as his flashlight flickered, everything stopped. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of dripping water. When he exited the tunnel, he glanced back to see a faint light bobbing deep within, as if a lantern were still burning in the hands of someone long dead. Despite numerous paranormal investigations, no scientific explanation has been found for the phenomena. Skeptics argue that the noises could be caused by shifting rock, wind patterns, or temperature changes within the tunnels. But those who have stood in the darkness and heard the steady beat of invisible pickaxes disagree. For them, the mine feels alive, a place where the boundary between past and present has worn thin. Visitors often leave the site with an overwhelming sense of melancholy. There is a weight in the air, as if the sorrow of generations has seeped into the stone itself. Some feel compelled to whisper apologies or prayers before leaving, an instinctive gesture of respect toward the spirits said to linger below. The few who have ignored this ritual claim to experience strange dreams, afterward visions of tunnels collapsing, cries echoing in the dark, or miners staring silently through the haze of dust and smoke. Those who return to the old copper mine say the experience never feels the same twice. The sounds shift, the shadows change, and the air grows heavier with each visit. Yet one constant remains, the sense that the miners are still there, laboring endlessly beneath the earth. Their tools may be rusted and their bodies long gone, but their presence endures in every echo, every cold breath, and every flicker of unseen light. The mine stands as both a warning and a remembrance, a place where ambition met disaster, and where the echoes of human effort refuse to fade. Visitors who come seeking adventure often find something far deeper, a glimpse into a world suspended between life and death, work and rest, silence and sound. And as they leave the shadowed tunnels behind, many swear they can still hear the faint clatter of phantom machinery, eternal reminder that some labors, even in death, are never truly finished. The Park City silver mines of Summit County once pulsed with life, echoing with the sounds of hammers, pickaxes, and the rumble of ore carts carrying wealth from the heart of the mountain. What began in the 1860s as a boomtown of fortune seekers has long since turned into a ghostly relic of Utah's mining past. Today, the tunnels are silent, their walls slick with time and moisture. Yet those who wander among the ruins claim that the mines are far from abandoned. Shadowy figures appear in the shafts, ghostly footsteps echo on wooden beams, and the faint light of lanterns flickers in places where no one stands. Even in daylight, the remnants of Park City's mining history carry an air of sorrow. The skeletal remains of headframes rise against the mountains like forgotten monuments. Rusted carts rest on rails that lead nowhere, their wheels locked by rust and time. The entrances to the old tunnels gape like open wounds in the rock. Visitors who approach these dark mouths often describe a sudden chill, as though the earth itself exhales a cold breath. The deeper one ventures, the more oppressive the air becomes, heavy, silent, and charged with the feeling that someone unseen walks just out of sight. The ghostly activity seems to concentrate in the oldest sections of the mines, where tragedy once struck most often. Historical records tell of countless accidents during Park City's mining boom. Explosions, collapses, and toxic gas leaks claimed lives deep underground. Miners who worked by lantern light often never saw the disaster coming. Visitors who explore the shafts at night describe seeing dark silhouettes moving along the walls, men in heavy coats and wide-brimmed hats, their outlines faint and wavering, as though half-formed from smoke. These apparitions appear briefly, walking with the same steady gait of miners returning from a shift before fading into darkness. Others report hearing the creak of wooden beams under unseen footsteps, as if a line of workers were passing overhead. The sounds are distinct, rhythmic, and always seem to stop when someone calls out or shines a flashlight in their direction. The flickering lanterns are among the most haunting sights reported. These ghostly lights appear deep within the tunnels or among the ruins of the old offices and shacks. They move slowly, as though carried by invisible hands, swaying in the dark before vanishing without a trace. Some believe these are the spirits of miners still making their nightly rounds, while others think they're echoes, residual energy replaying scenes from long ago. One explorer described seeing a lantern-esque glow at the end of a corridor and followed it for nearly 10 minutes. Only to find the passage ended in a solid wall of rock. Cold drafts are another unmistakable sign of the mine's haunted nature. Even during the summer, when the air outside is warm and still, a sudden icy breeze can sweep through the tunnels without explanation. Paranormal investigators who have monitored these changes with temperature gauges have documented drops of more than 20 degrees within seconds. Often, these cold spots are accompanied by faint whispers, soft, indistinct voices that seem to come from all directions. The whispers are rarely clear, though some claim to hear words like "careful" or "get out" repeated in low tones. Others describe laughter or the echo of conversations, as though the ghosts of the miners still gather to share stories long after their time has passed. The abandoned offices and surface buildings are no less active. These structures, once used for accounting, supervision, and storage, have decayed into hollow shells of their former selves. The wind rattles broken windows, and papers from decades past litter the floors. Those who enter at night speak of hearing the scratch of pins, the creak of office chairs, and the faint ring of telephones long disconnected. Some visitors have even claimed to see figures seated at desks, heads bowed over ledgers, vanishing the instant they are approached. One of the most compelling accounts came from a construction worker tasked with stabilizing an old support structure in the late 1990s. He reported hearing footsteps pacing just behind him as he worked, though he was alone in the tunnel. When he turned around, his flashlight beam caught the glint of something metallic, a miner's lantern hanging mid-air, burning faintly with a bluish light. The lantern hung motionless for several seconds before flickering out. The man left his tools behind and refused to return, later saying he felt as though unseen eyes followed him all the way back to the surface. The stories from the Park City silver mines have drawn countless paranormal enthusiasts over the years. Ghost hunters come equipped with cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic sensors, hoping to capture proof of the haunting. Many have succeeded in collecting unexplained phenomena recordings filled with distant voices, photos capturing streaks of light or misty forms, and sudden temperature spikes that defy environmental logic. One group even reported hearing the sound of a cart rolling across the rails, though all the tracks had long since been buried under debris. Despite the eerie reports, there is a sense of reverence among those who visit. The spirits that are said to inhabit the mines are not considered malicious, but rather enduring echoes of hard labor and loss. Each sound, light, and chill seems to serve as a reminder of the men who carved their lives out of the mountain. The haunting, for many, feels less like a curse and more like a memory that refuses to fade away, for the mind to remember its own history. Still, not every encounter is peaceful. Some explorers have reported being pushed or feeling a sudden pressure on their chests, as if the air itself turned solid. Others have described the sensation of being brushed by unseen figures moving past them in narrow tunnels. A few have even claimed to see full apparitions blocking their path, only to dissolve into dust when approached. One visitor who entered the mine during a winter storm later said he saw the shape of a miner standing by the entrance, holding a lantern aloft. The figure appeared to nod once before vanishing into the swirling snow. As time passes, the Park City silver mines continue to draw both historians and thrill-seekers. The town itself has evolved into a place of tourism and art, yet the mountain still holds its secrets beneath the surface. Every whisper in the dark, every flicker of phantom light, reminds visitors that this was once a world built on danger, sweat, and sacrifice. The spirits of Park City's miners, it seems, remain as steadfast as they were in lifeguarding the tunnels, walking the beams, and carrying their ghostly lanterns through the endless dark. Deep within the rugged beauty of Little Cottonwood Canyon, where steep granite cliffs tower over winding trails and the whisper of the wind carries through the pine, lie the remnants of Utah's once thriving mining industry. The canyon, carved by ancient glaciers and steeped in centuries of history, hides a darker legacy beneath its natural grandeur, one forged by sweat, ambition, and tragedy. The Little Cottonwood Canyon mines, scattered among the rocky slopes, are said to echo with the restless spirits of miners who never made it out alive. In the 1800s, as the silver boom swept through Utah, prospectors from all over the country descended on the canyon. Camps sprang up overnight, their fires glowing against the cold mountain walls. The mines' names like Emma, Flagstaff, and South Hecla dug deep into the earth, chasing veins of silver that promised wealth and freedom. But with the riches came danger. Cave-ins, explosions, and poisonous gas leaks were constant threats. Men worked long hours in darkness, so complete that the flicker of a candle could mean the difference between life and death. Some never saw daylight again. Today, the canyon stands quiet. The forest has begun reclaiming what man once stole, and the shafts lie hidden behind rusted gates and collapsed timber. But those who venture near after sunset tell of strange happenings, echoes of the past that refuse to fade. Hikers exploring the old trails sometimes report hearing rhythmic metallic sounds deep underground, the steady strike of a pickaxe, hollow and distant. When they stop to listen, the sound continues, as if unseen workers are still chipping away at invisible rock. Others have described faint voices drifting up from the sealed entrances, murmuring words too soft to understand, as if miners are calling out through time itself. A park ranger once recounted how, during a maintenance patrol, he felt an unexpected chill sweep through the canyon. It was midsummer, and the air had been dry and warm all day. Yet, as he approached a known mine entrance, the temperature dropped abruptly. His breath came out in visible puffs, and he could hear something faint, a single metallic clink. Then another, like someone working far below the surface. When he shined his flashlight toward the darkness, the beam caught what looked like a flickering lantern light receding deeper into the tunnel. But when he called out, there was only silence. Some locals claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving near the shafts at dusk, men wearing old miner-esque garb, faces obscured by soot and shadow. They walk with slow, deliberate steps, carrying lanterns that glow with an unnatural light. A few seconds later, the figures fade, leaving behind the faint smell of smoke and iron. There are also stories of those who dared to enter the tunnels illegally. One group of explorers reported that their flashlights began to flicker as they descended into an old drift. The air grew thick and heavy, the temperature plummeted, and one of them felt a cold brush against his shoulder, like a hand guiding or warning him. They turned to leave, but before they reached the surface, they heard what sounded unmistakably like a warning cry. "Get out!" It was followed by a low rumble that shook the walls. When they stumbled outside, the tunnel behind them partially collapsed. None of them ever returned. Locals often say the spirits that haunt the little Cottonwood Canyon mines are not malicious, they are protectors. Miners, even in death, were known for looking out for one another. Some believe the voices that echo through the tunnels are not cries for help, but warnings meant for the living. The whispers and sudden chills are reminders that the canyon remembers every life lost to its depths. The natural landscape seems to play into this haunting atmosphere. The canyon walls are steep and echo every sound: footsteps, wind, the drip of melting snow. At night, those echoes twist and blend until it becomes difficult to tell what's real. Lantern lights reflecting off mineral veins can appear like ghostly orbs drifting through the darkness. Yet, even experienced hikers who know the tricks of light and sound say there is something about these mines that defies logic. A local historian once spent several nights camping near one of the abandoned entrances to document paranormal activity. He recorded strange fluctuations on his equipment's sudden, electromagnetic spikes, followed by the faint sound of hammering. One night, his audio recorder captured something else, a deep male voice saying, "Still here." When he played it back later, he realized there had been no one else around. Even modern technology seems to falter near the mines. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain rapidly, and GPS devices lose signal. Explorers who attempt to photograph the interior often find strange mists or blurred figures appearing in their images' forms, resembling miners frozen in motion. The canyon's history only deepens the mystery. Between the late 1800s and early 1900s, dozens of accidents were documented in Little Cottonwood's mines. Explosions from trapped gas, cave-ins from weakened supports, and flooding from unexpected snowmelt claimed hundreds of lives. Each tragedy left its mark on the land. Locals say the earth itself remembers, holding the echoes of those final moments. Even during the daytime, some visitors claim to feel watched. A feeling of heaviness follows them along the trail, as though unseen eyes are tracking their every step. At night, that feeling intensifies. The wind carries faint cries that rise and fall with the shifting air. And some hikers swear they've seen lanterns swinging in the distance, always just out of reach. Despite the eerie legends, the Little Cottonwood Canyon mines remain a place of beauty and fascination. The mix of nature and history draws in hikers, historians, and paranormal investigators alike. But nearly all who visit agree, there's something uncanny about the air there. A sense of unfinished business that lingers long after you leave. The remains of the Silver Reef mines in Washington County rest beneath the desert sun, surrounded by red cliffs and dry sagebrush. Once a booming mining town in the late 19th century, Silver Reef was born from a geological oddity: silver ore found in sandstone. Something experts of the time claimed was impossible. But the miners proved them wrong, carving tunnels into the hills and building a thriving community out of nothing. At its height, Silver Reef had hotels, saloons, and a newspaper. The clang of pickaxes and the rumble of ore carts filled the air from dawn until well past dusk. But when the veins ran dry and tragedy took its toll, the noise faded. All that remains now are ruins, empty shafts, and whispers of those who never left. Locals say the spirits of the miners still walk the old tracks that cut through the hills, their boots crunching on gravel that hasn't been disturbed in over a century. On still nights, the sound of phantom machinery rises from the ground, the echo of engines that haven't turned in decades. Some say the desert itself remembers, carrying those sounds across the wind like a lingering song of industry and loss. Those who visit the abandoned mines often describe a strange shift in atmosphere the moment they approach the entrances. The air grows cooler, the light seems to dim, and the desert's usual hum of insects and wind falls eerily silent. Even seasoned hikers feel a heaviness descend, as though the weight of countless lives still clings to the sandstone walls. One visitor, a local historian exploring for photographs, recounted standing near one of the deeper shafts when he heard a rhythmic metallic tapping from within. It was faint, deliberate, and steady, too regular to be random rockfall. When he called out, the tapping stopped. Then, a few moments later, a soft whisper drifted up from the darkness. He couldn't make out the words, but it carried the unmistakable tone of warning, a breathy leave. He left soon after and swore never to return after dusk. The miners of Silver Reef endured harsh conditions. Caverns were common, and many died before their time. Gas pockets, collapsing beams, and flooding from unexpected rains all claimed lives. Records from the 1880s mention accidents that buried entire teams beneath tons of rock. Their bodies were never recovered, their graves sealed within the tunnels they dug. Today, locals believe those miners are still there, working endlessly in the afterlife. At night, some claim to see lights deep within the hills, flickering lanterns moving in slow patterns along the ridges or within the mines themselves. Explorers who follow the lights often find themselves disoriented, as if the landscape shifts around them. A few have even reported that the lanterns vanish entirely, only to reappear behind them moments later. It's said that these lights are the souls of miners, guiding or perhaps warning those who dare to tread too close to their eternal workplace. The sound of phantom carts is another mystery tied to Silver Reef. Older tracks still snake through parts of the site, rusted and half buried in sand. Late at night, visitors have reported hearing the unmistakable creak and rumble of heavy wheels rolling across those forgotten rails. Yet, when they investigate, the tracks are empty. Sometimes, these sounds are accompanied by the sharp clang of metal striking stone, echoing as if from deep underground. Some believe these are ghostly replays of the miners' final moments, an imprint of their labor burned into the earth. One of the most chilling reports came from a small group of paranormal investigators who ventured into a sealed section of tunnel under the cover of darkness. They carried recording equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. Inside, their flashlights flickered, and a cold draft swept through the tunnel, though the air outside was still and dry. One member claimed to hear footsteps following them, a slow, dragging sound, as if someone heavy was walking behind. When they turned their lights, there was nothing. Moments later, a voice whispered from the darkness, "Get out." It was faint, but every person in the group heard it. Seconds after they fled, a section of the tunnel roof collapsed behind them. To this day, they believe the warning saved their lives. Even those who don't believe in ghosts find something unsettling about the place. The silence is too complete. The sense of isolation, too intense. The desert seems to hold its breath there. Wind whips through the ruins, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and iron. Some say if you close your eyes and listen carefully, you can still hear the miners at work, the rhythmic clang of tools, the echo of orders shouted down the shaft, and the brief laughter of men who didn't know the dangers waiting ahead. Old-timers in Washington County tell stories passed down from their grandparents, who remembered Silver Reef when it was alive. One tale speaks of a miner who refused to leave when the mine closed. Obsessed with finding a new vein of silver, he worked alone until a collapse trapped him inside. When rescuers finally reached the spot, there was no body, only his pickaxe embedded in solid rock. Ever since, visitors have reported hearing the sound of that lone pick striking, steady and defiant, somewhere deep below the surface. The Silver Reef Cemetery, just outside the old town site, adds to the haunting atmosphere. Simple headstones mark the resting places of miners and families who once called the desert home. At night, strange mists sometimes form among the graves, and faint lights drift between the markers. Locals believe it's the spirits of those buried there visiting the mines one last time. Though the town faded long ago, the legends endure. Modern visitors, photographers, historians, and thrill-seekers are drawn to Silver Reef by curiosity and the eerie beauty of its ruins. Yet almost everyone who spends time there speaks of the same feeling, the sense that they are not alone. Something unseen watches from the shadows of the mine entrances, patient and silent, as if waiting for the next intruder to wander too deep. In the desolate hills of Wab County, where time seems to have paused and the wind whispers through crumbling ruins, lie the remnants of the Tintic Consolidated Mines. Once a symbol of Utah's mining might, this sprawling network of tunnels and shafts dug deep into the earth now stands as a monument to ambition and tragedy. The miners who toiled here sought silver, lead, and gold, but they also left behind something intangible, an echo of their lives that refuses to fade. By day, the Tintic mining district looks almost peaceful. Rusted headframes rise against the blue sky, and scattered timbers mark the outlines of long-abandoned structures. But when dusk falls and shadows stretch across the canyons, the atmosphere changes. Locals and visitors alike speak of ghostly apparitions moving along the old trestles, of lantern lights flickering in tunnels where no living soul dares to walk, and of whispers that drift through the air, soft yet impossible to ignore. Mining in the Tintic district began in the 1860s, when prospectors discovered veins of precious metal running through the rocky hills near Eureka. The Tintic Consolidated Mines soon became the heart of the region, drawing workers from across the West. It was a dangerous, unforgiving life. Men descended into narrow shafts with only a candle for light and faith that the timbers above would hold. Accidents were common: collapses, explosions, suffocating gases, and falls into unseen depths. Each tragedy added another name to the long list of those who never made it back to daylight. Even after the last mine shut down, locals claimed the area never truly fell silent. Strange lights have been seen deep in the hills, moving with purpose, as if guided by invisible hands. Hikers describe seeing faint lanterns swinging back and forth in the dark, followed by the echo of boots crunching gravel. When they approach, the lights vanish, and the footsteps cease, leaving behind only the faint smell of burning oil and damp stone. One man, a photographer documenting Utah's ghost towns, once ventured into a partially collapsed tunnel near the old Tintic mill. He said the air inside was unnaturally cold, even though the summer sun still blazed outside. As he moved deeper, his breath began to fog, and the sound of dripping water echoed from somewhere unseen. Then came another sound: soft, rhythmic footsteps, matching his pace, but coming from behind. When he turned, the beam of his flashlight caught nothing but dust and empty space. Moments later, a whisper brushed against his ear. "Not safe here." He fled the tunnel, his camera still recording. Later, when he played back the audio, the whisper was clearly audible, a deep, hollow voice repeating the same warning. Stories like his are not uncommon. Explorers who enter the tunnels often report sudden drops in temperature, as if stepping into another world. In some places, it's said that you can see your breath even in the middle of July. Tools have been heard clanging against rock, echoing from nowhere. and on calm nights, the sound of distant machinery hums beneath the ground. Locals call it the miner's shift, believing that the spirits of those who died are still at work, forever trapped in the routines of their labor. There also talk of ghostly figures, seen walking along the old trestles that cross the canyon's tall, silhouettes carrying dim lights, appearing just long enough for someone to notice before fading into thin air. One hiker described watching a line of faint lights moving across the ridge late one night, as though a crew of miners were heading to their shift, but the tracks beneath them had long since rotted away, and the ridge had been abandoned for nearly a century. The whispers are perhaps the most unsettling part of the Tintic legend. Visitors describe them as faint, indistinct murmurs that seem to come from every direction at once. Sometimes they sound like fragments of conversation, other times like warnings. A few have reported hearing their names called, only to realize they are completely alone. Some who visit after dark claim that the whispers grow louder the closer they get to the main shafts, urging them to leave before something unseen happens. In one particularly eerie account, a pair of local historians conducting research near the site set up recording equipment overnight. When they reviewed the footage, they found strange anomalies, cold spikes, distorted audio, and, in one segment, a faint light moving steadily down an abandoned tunnel. The light flickered like an old oil lamp, then abruptly vanished. Moments later, the microphone picked up what sounded like a man's voice, sighing deeply, followed by the faint clatter of metal striking stone. Skeptics argue that many of these occurrences can be explained by natural causes. Shifting air currents, decaying timbers, and changes in humidity can cause eerie sounds and temperature fluctuations. Reflections of headlights or moonlight on mineral surfaces might explain the ghostly lights, but even those who don't believe in spirits admit there is something unexplainably heavy about the Tintic Minza presence that lingers long after you leave. Some believe the haunting is tied to the sheer scale of loss the mines witnessed. Hundreds of men perished in accidents over the decades. For many, there were no proper burials. The earth itself became their tomb. The notion that their souls might still wander the tunnels feels almost inevitable. The haunting, in this sense, isn't one of malice, but of memory and eternal replay of the labor, fear, and sacrifice that defined their lives. The town of Eureka, once a bustling mining hub, still bears the scars of the past. Old buildings lean in silence, and the mountain slopes are pocked with forgotten entrances. On quiet nights, residents say you can still hear the low thud of dynamite from somewhere deep below, followed by faint shouting echoes of men trying to communicate from beyond time. For those who visit, the Tintic Consolidated Mines stand as both a historical relic and a haunted reminder. The tunnels, carved by human hands and sealed by tragedy, seem alive with whispers of the past. Cold air seeps from cracks in the rock, carrying with it the echoes of pickaxes, the shuffle of boots, and the occasional flash of a lantern light that has no source. High in the rugged terrain of Wab County, where the mountains rise like broken teeth against the Utah sky, lie the remains of the Eureka Hill Minza, once thriving center of industry, now overtaken by silence. The crumbling headframes and half-buried shafts are relics of a time when fortune and danger walked hand in hand, and the pursuit of silver and lead drew men into the unforgiving heart of the earth. But the echoes of that age have not entirely faded. Visitors who wander through these forsaken tunnels speak of strange sights and sounds that defy explanation. Ghostly miners emerging from the darkness, phantom lights that glide along the walls, and the hollow ring of pickaxes striking invisible stone. The Eureka Hill mines were part of the larger Tintic mining district, which boomed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Men came from across the country to chase the promise of wealth hidden beneath the mountains. They dug deep into the rock, carving tunnels that stretched for miles. But with the riches came peril. Cave-ins, explosions, and gas leaks were part of everyday life. Many miners never saw the sunlight again. Their bodies were buried within the earth they once conquered, and their names were lost to time. Now, the desert winds whispered through collapsed entrances, and the mountains seemed to hum with something unseen. Explorers and locals alike claim that when the sun dips behind the ridges and night takes hold, the old mines awaken. One story comes from a group of amateur historians who visited the site to document its remains. As they approached the largest of the Eureka Hill shafts, the air grew noticeably colder. One of them remarked that it felt as though they had stepped into another season. Their breath misted in the air, even though the day had been warm. Then came a sound, soft, deliberate, metallic. It was the unmistakable rhythm of a pickaxe striking stone. The group froze, listening. The strikes continued, echoing from deep within the tunnel. When one of them called out, the sound stopped instantly, replaced by silence so complete it made their ears ring. Moments later, a dim light flickered within the darkness, a lantern's glow, moving slowly toward them. But as it neared the mouth of the tunnel, it vanished. Such encounters are common around Eureka Hill. Hikers report seeing lights gliding along the rock walls, often in perfect rhythm with the faint sounds of labor. The lights are said to move as if carried by unseen hands, pausing and swaying like lanterns held by miners inspecting their work. Some witnesses describe hearing faint voices, indistinct but urgent men, shouting orders or calling out to one another. Yet, when they investigate, the tunnels are empty, and their own voices echo back, distorted and strange. Locals say the ghosts of Eureka Hill are not vengeful, merely restless. The miners' spirits linger, bound to the shafts where they toiled and died. Some believe they continue their eternal shift, searching for the vein of ore that eluded them in life. Others think they guard the tunnels, warning the living away from the dangers hidden below. A former mine inspector once shared a chilling account. While exploring one of the sealed entrances for safety assessment, he felt a sudden pressure in the arrow weight, as if the mountain itself was breathing around him. Then, faintly, he heard footsteps behind him, slow and steady. Assuming it was a colleague, he turned with his flashlight ready, but there was no one there. The beam of light caught nothing but drifting dust, yet the footsteps continued, circling him, coming closer until they stopped just a few feet away. Then, clear and close to his ear, a whisper, "Get back." Moments later, a section of loose timber ahead gave way, collapsing the tunnel. He escaped shaken, convinced that whatever had spoken had saved his life. Over the years, paranormal investigators have brought recording devices and cameras to Eureka Hill, hoping to capture evidence of what so many have felt. On one occasion, a team left an audio recorder deep inside a tunnel overnight. When they retrieved it, they discovered faint noises, metallic clanks, footsteps, and at one point, a voice saying what sounded like "still here." The tunnel in question had been sealed off for nearly a century. Even without the supernatural, the place carries an undeniable eeriness. The dry desert air carries the faint scent of rust and dust, and the ground seems to hum beneath your feet. Old ore carts sit frozen on rusted tracks, their wheels locked in time. Shadows stretch across the tunnel walls in strange patterns that seem to move when no one does. Some who visit the site at night describe a strange phenomenon: phantom figures emerging from the darkness. Their forms faint but distinct, dressed in miners' garb, with lamps fixed to their helmets. They appear for only seconds before fading into the rock. Witnesses say these apparitions often appear near the main shaft, where several deadly cave-ins were recorded in the 1890s. On more than one occasion, explorers have claimed to see these figures raise their lanterns as if to signal them away from danger. Temperature drops are common too. Visitors report walking through patches of icy air that seem to move as if alive. One moment, the air feels still and hot. The next, a chill sweeps over them, sharp enough to raise goosebumps. Some describe hearing whispers carried on the wind, soft words that fade as quickly as they appear. Despite its decayed state, Eureka Hill remains a draw for thrill-seekers and historians alike. Its haunting allure lies in the balance between beauty and unease, the golden light of sunset spilling across rusted metal, the silence broken only by the occasional echo of something that shouldn't be there. Those who've spent time there often say that the mind feels alive, as though the mountain still breathes with the spirits of those buried inside. Many believe that the haunting is not one of anger, but of remembrance. The ghosts of Eureka Hill are the echoes of hardworking men who gave their lives to the depths. Their voices, their footsteps, and their lights are not meant to scare, but to remind. The mines took everything from them: light, air, and time itself, and so they linger, bound to the only home they ever knew. Deep in the mountains of Toole County, where the wind moves like a whisper through the canyons and time has long since forgotten the clatter of machinery, lies the Silver King Mina, place of fortune, loss, and lingering spirits. Once a cornerstone of Utah's mining boom, it was a site where men gambled their lives in the darkness, chasing veins of silver that shimmered like promises in the rock. The mine brought wealth to some and tragedy to others. Today, its tunnels are silent, yet those who wander near claim it's far from empty. Visitors tell of ghostly figures dressed in old miner uniforms, their outlines faint but distinct, moving steadily through the gloom. Others have seen shadowy forms gliding along the rusted tracks where ore carts once rattled, and flickering lights appearing in chambers where no electricity remains. Cold drafts sweep through the tunnels without warning, and some explorers swear they've felt unseen hands brush against their backs, as if urging them to leave before it's too late. The Silver King mine opened in the late 1800s, during Utah's feverish rush for silver and lead. Men came from every corner of the country to work its depths, drawn by rumors of endless riches buried beneath the mountains. They dug deep into the earth, building a labyrinth of tunnels and shafts supported by creaking timber and iron beams. But the deeper they went, the greater the danger. Collapses were frequent, and pockets of toxic gas could suffocate without warning. Yet still, they pressed on, each strike of the pick echoing like a heartbeat through the stone. Many never returned. Cavins buried crews alive, and explosions ripped through chambers without mercy. Some say that the spirits of those lost miners never left. The mine became their tomb, and their ghosts, forever tied to the stone, still roam the tunnels where they met their fate. Locals who live near the old site speak in hushed tones about what happens after dark. They say that faint lantern lights can be seen flickering deep in the hills, moving slowly as if carried by unseen hands. The lights sway, pause, and vanish, only to reappear further along the ridgeline. Sometimes, just before the light fades, a figure can be seen standing beside it, a tall shadow in miner's garb, staring silently into the night. One retired park ranger once shared his experience of visiting the mine during a daytime inspection. The air inside, he said, was cold enough to see his breath, though the sun outside was blistering. As he walked deeper into the tunnel, his flashlight began to flicker. Then he heard the soft, steady sound of footsteps behind him. Slow, deliberate, matching his own pace. He turned, expecting to see his assistant, but the tunnel was empty. The air grew heavier, pressing in around him. Then, something brushed against his shoulder like the sweep of a gloved hand. He left immediately and never returned, convinced that he had walked too close to one of the mine's unseen residents. Stories like his have persisted for decades. Paranormal investigators who ventured into the Silver King tunnels report strange readings on their equipment, sudden electromagnetic spikes, temperature drops, and disembodied voices captured on audio recorders. One team described hearing rhythmic hammering echoing through a sealed section of tunnel. The sound was faint, but unmistakable, metal striking stone, steady and purposeful. When they called out, the hammering stopped abruptly. Then, a whisper followed a deep, drawn-out go. Moments later, a section of rock crumbled from the ceiling, forcing them to flee. Even those who come with skepticism admit that the atmosphere in the Silver King mine is unnerving. The tunnels are vast and twisting, with old timbers groaning under their own decay. Dust swirls in the beam of a flashlight, taking on shapes that seem to move of their own accord. Sometimes, when the air shifts, a faint metallic scent fills the space like iron or blood. Visitors frequently mention feeling sudden cold drafts, even in sealed sections where airflow should be impossible. Some say the cold seems to follow them, moving up their spine or circling their body as though something unseen is drawing near. Others claim to have felt a hand graze their back or shoulder, not forceful but deliberate, as if trying to warn them away from danger. It's a sensation described by many and easily dismissed by none. Locals often refer to the Silver King ghosts as the Watchmen, They believe the spirits linger to protect their territory, warning off intruders who might disturb the resting places of their fallen comrades. The whispers, footsteps, and flickering lights, they say, are not acts of malice, but messages, a way for the dead to communicate with the living. One of the most haunting tales involves a prospector who, years after the mine's closure, decided to search the tunnels for lost silver. He was never seen again. A week later, a search party entered the shaft and found his equipment near the entrances, lanterns still burning faintly, his tools laid neatly beside it. No footprints led deeper inside. Locals who live nearby still say that on certain nights, a lone light appears where he vanished, moving in slow circles before fading into the earth. Though the Silver King mine has long been abandoned, the land surrounding it retains a strange energy. Even from a distance, the remnants of the operation, the collapsed trestles, the rusted carts, the yawning black mouths of the tunnels, seem to radiate a quiet presence. Wind moves through the openings like a voice, low and steady, as if the mountain itself is breathing. Those who visit often describe a heavy stillness that settles over the site. Birds stop singing, and the usual sounds of nature fade away. In that silence, even the faintest noise becomes sharp, the scrape of a boot, the whisper of air, the quiet drip of water, somewhere in the depths. It's in that stillness that many say the spirits stir, replaying the moments of their past lives in endless repetition. Skeptics might explain it all as tricks of sound and light, the product of imagination in a place so steeped in death and history. But for those who felt the icy touch of unseen hands, or watched the flicker of a phantom lantern dance through the dark, the Silver King mine is a place where the veil between worlds feels dangerously thin. To this day, locals advise against venturing too far into the tunnels. The structure is unstable, yes, but there's also the matter of respect. The Silver King is more than a relic of industry. It's a graveyard of forgotten men whose spirits may still keep watch. Some say that if you stand at the entrance after midnight, you'll hear it, the distant ring of a pickaxe, the murmur of voices, and the faint shuffle of boots retreating into the dark. Deep beneath the elegant ski resorts and lively streets of modern Park City lies a far older world, a labyrinth of dark tunnels, crumbling shafts, and forgotten chambers carved by men who once sought their fortune in silver and gold. The Park City historic mines, scattered across Summit County, are remnants of an era that built the town from rough mountain outpost to booming mining hub. Yet the echoes of that era still seem to linger, long after the last ore cart rolled out and the last miner's lamp went dark. Visitors claim that tunnels remain alive with movement, phantom footsteps, flickering lights, and ghostly voices whispering from the stone. When the mines first opened in the late 1800s, Park City was wild and untamed. The mountains drew dreamers and laborers from around the world, all chasing the glittering veins of silver buried beneath the Wasatch Range. The work was perilous. Explosions, collapses, and suffocation were common. Men spent 12-hour shifts underground, breathing dust and darkness, their lives depending on the creak of wooden supports and the flicker of oil lamps. Death was never far away, and for many, the mine itself became their tomb. Today, those who dared to explore the remnants of Park City's mining history say the spirits of those men still wander the tunnels. Shadowy forms have been spotted drifting along the walls, their silhouettes faint but human-shaped. Some appear to be carrying lanterns that glow dimly before vanishing into the earth. The faint echo of footsteps often follows explorers, though when they turn to look, no one is there. And deep within the shafts, the strangest phenomenon of all ghostly lights that float and shimmer like willow, the whisper said, to move through the darkness, illuminating empty spaces for just a moment before fading into silence. One of the most well-known areas for paranormal encounters is near the old Silver King mine shaft, where a network of tunnels runs deep beneath the city. Hikers and workers maintaining old structures have reported hearing what sounds like conversations echoing from below, muffled voices, the clink of tools, and laughter that fades as soon as it's noticed. The sounds seem to come from the depths of sealed-off chambers, long inaccessible to the living. A local historian once shared an unsettling experience, while surveying one of the old mine entrances for restoration. As he stood by the mouth of the tunnel, he heard what he described as the unmistakable ring of a pickaxe, striking rock steady, rhythmic, echoing faintly through the mountainside. Thinking someone had entered illegally, he called out, but no reply came. The sound continued for a few more seconds, then stopped abruptly. When he peered inside with his flashlight, the tunnel was empty. The only thing he noticed was a faint trail of mist lingering in the air, cold and slow-moving, as if something had just passed by. Others tell of a particular mine chamber, known among locals as the Whispering Shaft. When the wind moves through the tunnels just right, it produces a sound that resembles voices speaking softly in conversation. Some say it's just air passing through narrow cracks, but many who have stood there claim the whispers form actual words phrases like "keep digging" or "watch your step." On more than one occasion, visitors report feeling a tug on their clothing or a sudden drop in temperature right before the whispers begin. Ghostly lights are another recurring phenomenon. Explorers who enter the tunnels at night often see faint orbs glowing along the old tracks. The lights appear bluish or white, bobbing gently as if someone were walking with a lantern. Sometimes they drift closer before abruptly vanishing. A group of paranormal investigators once recorded such a light moving along a sealed passage. Their cameras captured no physical source, no person, no reflection, no trick of dust. When they reviewed the footage later, they heard faint metallic clinking in the background, like chains or mining tools being dragged across the floor. Park City residents, who've grown up near these sites, treat the stories with a mix of reverence and fear. They see the hauntings as reminders of the lives that built the city men, who worked themselves to exhaustion, often for little reward, and who may have found no peace, even in death. Many locals believe the spirits are not malevolent, but rather restless, bound to the tunnels they carved with sweat and blood. Still, there are accounts that carry a darker tone. In 1978, two teenagers exploring an abandoned shaft near Ontario Mine reported hearing a voice call out to them from the darkness. The voice, they said, sounded desperate, pleading for help, as though someone had been trapped inside. They shouted back, but no one answered. A moment later, they heard what they described as a long, low groan echoing through the tunnel, followed by a sudden gust of icy air that extinguished their flashlights. They ran and never returned. Environmental experts often point to logical explanations for these experiences: shifting air currents, mineral reflections, or residual acoustics from the mine's design. But even they admit that certain incidents defy clear reasoning. The underground acoustics can distort sound in unsettling ways, making a single drip of water seem like footsteps, or turning the rustle of debris into human speech. Yet for those who've experienced the unexplainable, no amount of science can erase what they felt: the sense of being watched, the sudden cold on their neck, the awareness that something unseen moved just out of reach. One Park City tour guide recalls leading a small group through an old mine exhibit one winter evening. As he described the history of the miners who died in the collapse, every lantern in the tunnel flickered at once. The group fell silent. Then, from somewhere deep beyond the wooden barrier, came the faint sound of laughter, light, distant, almost cheerful. The guide tried to dismiss it as an echo, but he couldn't help noticing that the air had turned sharply cold. The laughter faded, leaving only the sound of their own breathing. Visitors often leave the mines with a strange sense of melancholy. There's beauty in the stillness, in knowing the walls hold the stories of men who once believed these mountains would make them rich. Instead, many became part of the mountain itself. The tunnels stand as a monument to their ambition and sacrifice, and perhaps their inability to let go. To this day, some who walk through Park City as quiet nights say they can hear faint sounds rising from below the ground: the rumble of carts, the murmur of unseen voices, the metallic ring of tools striking stone. It's as though the mountain remembers everything. The past doesn't rest here. It lingers, breathing softly through the cracks of time, waiting for anyone willing to listen. The Bingham Mines of Salt Lake County are a colossal reminder of Utah's industrial past, a place where man and mountain collided for over a century in the relentless pursuit of copper, gold, and silver. What remains today is an enormous open pit, surrounded by abandoned shafts, rusting equipment, and forgotten tunnels that snake through the earth like veins of memory. But locals say the ground there holds more than ore and stone. It holds something far older, something restless. Those who visit the fringes of the Bingham mines claim the ghosts of the men who once labored beneath the surface never truly left, long before modern machinery reshaped the land into one of the largest man-made excavations in the world. The Bingham Canyon was alive with human voices. The early miners, mostly immigrants from Greece, Italy, and Scandinavia, built small towns clinging to the canyon walls. Life was difficult and dangerous. Explosions, toxic gases, and cave-ins were common, and many men were buried in darkness long before their time. The mines paid well enough for families to survive, but it was a bargain made at a terrible cost. Today, long after most of the operations have ceased in those old tunnels, the echoes of that past seem to linger. Explorers and night watchmen speak of ghostly figures wandering near the old machinery, areas shadowy outlines that vanish as soon as a light is turned toward them. Some describe them as wearing old miners' garb, their faces obscured beneath soot-covered helmets. Others have seen the faint glow of lanterns flickering between the beams of collapsed structures, lights that move as if carried by invisible hands. The reports of unexplained clanging are among the most common. In the stillness of night, metallic sounds ring out across the abandoned grounds, the rhythmic hammering of tools, the sharp echo of picks striking stone. Maintenance workers have followed the noises, thinking they came from loose machinery or wind-blown debris, only to find the area silent when they arrived. One worker, who patrolled the mine perimeter for nearly a decade, once said the sound was unmistakable. It wasn't wind. It was the sound of work, like men digging, far off, somewhere deep underground. The deeper tunnels are said to be even more unsettling. Those who've explored them often report sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being watched, and faint whispers that seem to travel along the rock walls. As they entered one of the old shafts, they heard the steady creak of a cart being pushed along rails. When they turned their flashlights down the corridor, a shape appeared, a dim figure moving slowly toward them. It seemed to push something, though no cart was visible. They froze, watching as the figure paused, turned slightly, and then vanished. The sound of the cart continued for several seconds more, before fading into silence. Another local story tells of an old road that once wound through the mining complex, connecting the living quarters to the lower tunnels. That road is now blocked, but some claim that on quiet nights, a faint yellow light travels its path, and old lanterns swinging in the dark. Those who have seen it say it always appears at the same spot, moves at a slow, steady pace, and disappears into the brush near the old entrance. The legend says it belongs to a foreman who died while searching for missing workers after a collapse. His body was never found, and his light still searches for them, endlessly making the same walk through the canyon night after night. Stranger still are the reports of voices carried by the wind. People standing near the old machinery buildings say they heard faint calls echoing from the tunnels, sometimes laughter, sometimes shouts in languages no one understands. The sounds come and go quickly, leaving behind a sense of unease, as though the canyon itself were breathing out fragments of its past. One former miner, who returned decades after retirement, shared a story of his own. He had come to visit what remained of his old worksite, a place he had spent half his life. As he stood near the rusted frame of a hoist, he said he heard someone call his name, clearly, distinctly, in a voice he recognized. It was his friend Michael, who had died in a cave-in 40 years earlier. The man said he froze, unable to move or answer. The voice called again, softer this time, then faded. When he turned to leave, he saw a shape standing near the tunnel entrance's shadow against the fading light. He was just standing there, the man said quietly, just like he used to, waiting for me to finish my shift. Skeptics attribute the phenomena to natural acoustics, reflections of light, and the power of suggestion. The canyon walls can carry sound for miles, and the metal structures still embedded in the earth can create strange vibrations when wind passes through them. But even those who dismiss the supernatural admit that the atmosphere of Bingham Mines is unlike any other. The silence feels heavy, alive, and filled with memory. Paranormal investigators have conducted studies in the area over the years, recording unexplained sounds and electromagnetic fluctuations. One team left a voice recorder near an old compressor building overnight. When they played it back the next day, they claimed to hear faint breathing and what sounded like the words, "Keep away." Another investigator, standing alone near a collapsed shaft, reported feeling a light tap on his shoulder. When he turned, he saw nothing but dust hanging in the air. Locals who live near the mine avoid the area after sunset. They say the spirits are restless, especially during storms when lightning flashes over the pit. Some believe the ghosts of Bingham's miners are not trapped, but simply repeating the motions of their former lives, bound to the work that defined them. The clang of tools, the roll of invisible carts, the distant calls, all echoes of a time when the canyon pulsed with human energy and ambition. The canyon they carved became their monument, and perhaps their prison. Every sound, every shadow, every glimmer of light among the ruins feels like a memory replaying itself endlessly. Reminder that the mountain never forgets. The air grows still, the temperature drops, and somewhere below, faint metallic sounds begin to rise. For a moment, it feels as if the canyon is alive again. The men at work, their lanterns swinging, their voices echoing through the stone. Then, just as quickly, it all fades into silence, leaving only the wind whispering through the empty shafts. Nestled high in the rugged peaks of Salt Lake County, the Albion Basin mines stand as a quiet testament to Utah's mining history. These abandoned shafts and tunnels, now mostly reclaimed by the wilderness, were once filled with the clatter of pickaxes, the rumble of ore carts, and the voices of miners chasing wealth hidden in the mountains. Today, the mines are silent, but not entirely empty. Visitors have long reported strange phenomena: ghostly lights flickering in the darkness, shadowy figures moving silently along narrow tunnels, and a persistent feeling of being watched. In the depths, faint whispers seem to drift from nowhere, as if the mountain itself remembers the men who labored on, sometimes perished within its rock. Mining in Albion Basin began in the late 1800s, as prospectors followed veins of silver and lead deep into the Wasatch Mountains. Life for these men was perilous and exhausting. They spent long hours in cramped tunnels, breathing dust and smoke from blasting powder, often in near-complete darkness. Collapses and accidents were tragically common, and many miners never saw daylight again. Their bodies were buried within the earth they had carved, leaving behind only the tunnels and the tools they had used so diligently. Some locals believe that it is these lost miners whose presence continues to haunt Albion Basin today. Those who venture into the old shafts often speak of an unsettling atmosphere. The deeper they go, the colder the air becomes, sometimes dropping sharply even on warm summer days. Explorers report phantom light-stem glows that appear suddenly along the walls or in the distance of long tunnels. The lights flicker as if carried by unseen hands, illuminating the jagged rock for a moment before vanishing without trace. Some witnesses describe seeing these lights moving in patterns, as if guiding someone or performing tasks invisible to the human eye. Shadowy figures are also commonly reported. Hikers, historians, and paranormal investigators alike have described humanoid forms gliding silently through the tunnels. These apparitions appear briefly at the edge of vision, sometimes dressed in the rough clothing or helmets of miners from a century past. Occasionally, the shapes pause and look toward the intruder, vanishing the instant they are acknowledged. Many claim the figures are not malevolent, but restless, tied to the work they once performed, endlessly wandering the shafts they called home. Deep underground, voices often float in the darkness, faint and fragmented. Some report hearing instructions for work, the names of miners, or warnings of imminent danger. Explorers have recounted hearing their own names called in low, hollow tones, only to find themselves entirely alone. The whispers often seem to come from multiple directions at once, making it difficult to discern their source, and the sound can abruptly stop, leaving a silence that feels heavier than the darkness itself. One visitor, a photographer documenting Utah's historic mines, shared a chilling encounter as he descended into a partially collapsed tunnel. He noticed the temperature dropping rapidly, his breath visible in the dim light of his headlamp. Then came a faint clanging, like metal striking stone. He turned to locate the source, but the tunnel was empty. Moments later, a ghostly light appeared at the far end of the shaft. It swayed as though someone were carrying a lantern. The photographer followed it for several steps, but as he approached, the light disappeared, and the echo of footsteps continued behind him, though no one was there. He left the mind shaken, certain that some presence lingered long after human activity had ceased. The terrain around Albion Basin itself seems to amplify the feeling of unease. Older carts and rusted machinery litter the hillsides, half buried in loose rock and soil. Weathered timbers mark the entrances to tunnels that have long since been sealed or collapsed. Even in daylight, shadows cast by these remnants seem to shift unnaturally, prompting a sense of movement at the periphery of vision. At night, the area becomes even more disorienting. Distant lights flicker, and the wind carries sounds that could be mistaken for the shuffle of boots or the dragging of tools along stone. Locals who live near the abandoned mines caution visitors to show respect. They speak of the place not only as a historic site, but as a resting place for those who never returned from the depths. It is said that the spirits of Albion Basin do not seek to harm the living, but to warn them, reminding them of the dangers of the tunnels and the fragility of human life when pitted against a mountain. The phenomenon of cold drafts, fleeting lights, and whispered voices serves as both a memorial and a cautionary presence. Paranormal investigators have recorded evidence of unusual activity in the basin, including unexplained electromagnetic readings and audio captures of faint whispers. In one case, a team placed a voice recorder in a sealed tunnel overnight. Upon playback, they heard several faint phrases words, like "look out" and "go back," accompanied by metallic clanging and distant footsteps. The investigators noted no physical entry points into the tunnel, leaving them to wonder if the mine itself had somehow stored echoes of the past, replaying them for anyone who dared enter. Even those who do not believe in ghosts acknowledge that Albion Basin has a unique energy, the combination of history, isolation, and the raw, unforgiving mountain landscape creates an environment that heightens perception and imagination. But for those who have walked the tunnels at night, felt the cold draft brush their skin, or seen a flickering light vanish into stone, it is difficult to ignore the possibility that something otherworldly remains. The Albion Basin mines endure as a place of memory. They are more than abandoned tunnels and rusted machinery. They are a repository of human labor, ambition, and tragedy. The ghostly lights, the shadowy figures, and the whispers serve as a bridge between the present and the past, reminding visitors that the men who shaped the mountains with their hands are not entirely gone. They linger in the darkness, moving through the shafts they once called home, eternally tied to the work that defined their lives and the earth that now holds them. The Frisco mines of Beaver County, Utah, stand as silent monuments to an era of ambition, risk, and untold tragedy. Long abandoned, the mines are relics of a time when the pursuit of silver and lead drew thousands into the unforgiving desert mountains. Men who spent their lives carving tunnels and shafts into the rock in the hope of striking it rich. Today, the area is quiet, yet many who visit claim the silence is deceptive. Shadowy forms glide through the old shafts, ghostly lantern lights flicker along the walls, and the faint echoes of voices calling names drift through the tunnels. In some places, the unmistakable ring of pickaxes striking unseen rock can still be heard, as if the miners who once labored there continue their work beyond the grave. The Frisco mines rose to prominence in the late 1800s, attracting miners from across the nation. Life was harsh and dangerous. Men descended into narrow shafts, lighting their way with flickering lamps, while the threat of collapse or explosion hung constantly over them. Mining accidents were frequent, and many men were never seen above ground again. The mountains swallowed them, leaving only empty tunnels and rusting equipment behind. It is said that these tunnels, carved by hands now long gone, have retained the energy of those who perished, giving rise to the haunting that visitors continue to experience. Explorers venturing into the Frisco mines often describe an eerie sensation as they approach the old shafts. The air grows colder, and the usual sounds of wildlife fade into a heavy silence. Then, seemingly from nowhere, a faint glow appears, a lantern swinging in the distance, drifting through the darkness as though carried by an unseen miner. The light often disappears when observed directly, only to reappear further down the tunnel, moving with deliberate, measured steps. Some who have seen it describe the experience as unnerving, like witnessing a memory of the past replaying itself for the living. Shadowy figures are another frequent phenomenon reported at Frisco. Hikers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike have seen human-shaped silhouettes emerging from the corners of their vision. These forms often move silently along the walls or through the tunnels, vanishing when confronted with light or sound. Many witnesses insist that the figures are dressed in period miners' clothing, helmets tilted low, faces obscured in shadow. Their presence is fleeting, yet it leaves an impression, an unshakable sense of having been watched by something unseen. Visitors often report hearing their names called from deep within the tunnels, or faint conversations in languages they do not understand. Sometimes the voices sound urgent, warning of danger or directing attention to unseen hazards. Other times, they are soft and melancholy, repeating snippets of life from long ago, instructions for work, laughter, or the call of a foreman checking the crew. Even in the absence of physical presence, the echoes feel real, tangible, as if the miners themselves are reaching out through the fabric of time. The sound of pickaxes striking stone is another common report. Occasionally, the sounds seem to circle around the listener, passing from one side to the other, as if following them through the tunnels. Some investigators claim the echoes are inexplicable, arising in sealed sections where no human could be present. Others believe the tunnels themselves hold the energy of labor long past, replaying it for anyone daring enough to enter. One particularly chilling account comes from a group of paranormal investigators who spent a night in the Frisco mines as they set up equipment in a partially collapsed shaft. They reported seeing a lantern appear at the far end, bobbing gently as it moved toward them. Their cameras captured nothing physical, yet the glow was visible to the naked eye. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing along the tunnel walls. When one of the team called out, the footsteps stopped, followed by the unmistakable sound of a pickaxe striking rock. Moments later, the lantern flickered and vanished, leaving only darkness and the quiet hum of their own breathing. The terrain surrounding the mines adds to their haunting atmosphere. Rusted ore carts remain on broken tracks, half-buried timbers jut from crumbling shafts, and the canyon walls, steep and silent, seem to hold a presence of their own. Even during the day, shadows appear to shift unnaturally, and the wind can carry strange sounds, echoes of past labor, or perhaps something more supernatural. At night, the area transforms further. Ghostly lights flicker in the distance. Metallic clinks sound from nowhere, and the stillness feels alive with unseen activity. Locals have long warned against exploring too deeply into the old shafts, not only because of physical hazards, but also because of the persistent tales of the supernatural. They speak of the Frisco mines as a place where the past lingers, where the spirits of miners who gave their lives remain tied to the tunnels and the work they once performed. The lights, shadows, and voices are not believed to be malicious, but serve as reminders of lives cut short, warning the living of the dangers below. Paranormal enthusiasts continue to visit the mines, drawn by curiosity and the allure of the unknown. Audio recordings often capture faint whispers, footsteps, or metallic clanging where no human presence exists. Some investigators report sudden drops in temperature, objects moving slightly on their own, and a pervasive feeling of being observed. Despite modern equipment and skepticism, many admit that the Frisco mines possess an energy that is difficult to explain, an energy that carries the weight of history, labor, and tragedy. The Frisco mines are more than abandoned tunnels and rusted machinery. They are a repository of human ambition and loss. The shadowy figures, ghostly lights, and faint voices are echoes of a bygone era. a bridge between the present and the lives of those who once toiled beneath the mountains. Visitors leave the site with an awareness that something endures in those tunnels, a presence that refuses to be forgotten. The Tintic Smelter in Webb County, Utah, is a relic of an era when the mountains were alive with the clamor of industry and the hopes of fortune. Once a hub for processing ore extracted from the nearby Tintic mining district, the smelter was a place of smoke, fire, and relentless labor. Today, the smelter sits abandoned, its rusted structures and crumbling walls standing as silent witnesses to a past filled with hard work and tragedy. Yet those who visit claim the site is far from lifeless. Shadowy figures have been seen moving along old conveyor belts, ghostly footsteps echo through empty buildings, and sudden cold spots appear in areas long devoid of warmth or human presence. The Tintic Smelter opened in the late 1800s during the height of Utah's mining boom. Miners and laborers would extract silver, gold, and lead from the surrounding mountains and bring the ore to the smelter for processing. Life here was dangerous and unforgiving. Men worked long hours, breathing smoke and dust, while the threat of accidents, explosions, burns, collapses was constant. Many who worked at the smelter did not live to retire. Their lives ended abruptly, leaving the buildings and machinery as reminders of their toil. Some say the spirits of these workers never left, haunting the site as they once labored through smoke and fire. Visitors often report an unsettling feeling the moment they approach the smelter. The air seems heavier, charged with a presence that cannot be seen. Inside the old buildings, shadows flit along walls and machinery, vanishing when illuminated by a flashlight. Some explorers have described seeing figures walking along the old conveyor belts, moving with deliberate purpose, as though continuing the work they performed in life. These apparitions are often fleeting, glimpsed out of the corner of an eye, but the impression lingers, leaving a sense of being watched. Ghostly footsteps are another common experience reported at the smelter. In the quiet of the abandoned halls, the sound of boots or shoes striking concrete or metal can be heard, echoing through empty spaces. Visitors say the footsteps move with intention, sometimes pacing along a corridor, sometimes following them from room to room. In many cases, the footsteps stop abruptly when approached, leaving only silence and a chill in the air. Some claim that the sounds are accompanied by the faint clinking of tools, as though miners are still working unseen, their labor echoing across time. Cold spots are frequently reported in the smelter's buildings, even on warm summer days. These sudden drops in temperature often appear in areas where no ventilation or drafts exist. Visitors describe the sensation as sharp and immediate, sending shivers down the spine. Some believe these cold pockets are the manifestation of spirits lingering in the spaces they once occupied, tied to the heat and toil of the smelter. Others suggest that it may be residual energy left behind, a lingering echo of the labor and suffering that occurred within these walls. One particularly chilling account comes from a group of paranormal investigators who spent the night documenting the smelter. As they set up cameras and audio equipment, they noticed shadows moving across the machinery, though no one was present. Their recorders captured faint footsteps pacing along the metal walkways, accompanied by a low, unintelligible murmur. At one point, a lantern light flickered in the distance, drifting across a conveyor belt before vanishing. When they attempted to approach it, the light disappeared entirely, leaving only darkness and the sense of a presence retreating further into the smelter's depths. The rusted framework of the smelter contributes to its eerie atmosphere. Conveyor belts hang like skeletons across the buildings, their metal creaking in the wind. Old smokestacks tower above the ruins, casting long shadows over broken windows and crumbling walls. Even in daylight, the structures seem alive with movement. The play of light and shadow can create the illusion of figures walking among the machines. At night, the place transforms further. Any small light becomes magnified, casting long, shifting silhouettes that appear to move with intelligence. Local residents have long shared stories of hauntings at the Tintic Smelter. They speak of workers who died in fires or machinery accidents, men who may still roam the site. Some recount seeing a figure at the top of a conveyor belt, standing motionless before vanishing. Others mention hearing the soft echo of voices calling out names, sometimes in English, sometimes in Spanish, reflecting the diverse workforce that once toiled there. These stories are passed down with a mixture of reverence and caution, warning visitors that the smelter is not a place to be taken lightly. Skeptics attribute many of the experiences to imagination, the effects of wind, and the acoustics of the abandoned buildings. It is true that the metal structures can amplify sounds, and shadows can play tricks on the eyes. Yet even those who approach the smelter with a rational mindset admit that something about the site is different. The combination of history, isolation, and the sheer scale of the ruins creates an atmosphere that is difficult to ignore. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous instances of unexplained phenomena. Audio recordings often pick up faint whispers and footsteps where no human presence exists. Cameras occasionally capture brief glimpses of moving shadows or glowing orbs that defy explanation. Some visitors have even felt what they describe as a gentle brush against their shoulder, as if someone unseen were guiding them through the buildings. The Tintic Smelter is more than a collection of abandoned structures. It is a repository of memory, labor, and loss. The shadowy figures, flickering lights, and ghostly footsteps are reminders of the men who spent their lives within its walls, men whose stories are written into the stone, metal, and dust of the smelter. For those who walk among the ruins, there is a palpable sense that the past is not gone, only waiting for someone to witness it. The Ophir Canyon mines in Toole County, Utah, are a haunting remnant of the state's rich mining history, carved into the rugged slopes of the Stansbury Mountains. Once bustling with miners seeking silver, gold, and lead, these tunnels now lie silent. Yet the memories of labor, danger, and tragedy seem to linger within the stone. Visitors report ghostly figures moving through the narrow passages, flickering lantern lights that appear without source, and whispering voices that echo off the rough walls. Sudden gusts of cold wind can chill explorers to the bone, even in the heat of summer, as though the canyon itself is alive with the echoes of the past. Mining in Ophir Canyon began in the mid-1800s, during a period of rapid expansion across the American West. Men traveled from near and far, drawn by the promise of wealth hidden deep within the mountains. Life in the mines was grueling. Hours were spent in darkness, breathing dust and smoke, while chiseling rock with pickaxes. The threat of collapse, toxic gases, and explosive accidents was constant. Many miners never emerged from the tunnels, leaving their tools, their lanterns, and sometimes their lives behind. Over the decades, the canyon became littered with abandoned shafts and collapsed tunnels, each a silent testament to the human toil and lives lost. Today, those who enter Ophir Canyon often feel an immediate sense of unease. The atmosphere is heavy, the air thick with the lingering weight of history. Ghostly figures are frequently reported shapes, moving at the edge of vision, dressed in miners' clothing from a bygone era. These silhouettes sometimes appear along the walls of the shafts, pacing silently, or disappearing through walls that have long been sealed. Witnesses say the apparitions do not approach aggressively, but their presence is unmistakable, leaving a lingering awareness that someone or something is watching. Lantern lights are a common phenomenon in the Ophir Canyon mines. Visitors describe small glows, drifting along tunnels, or bobbing over uneven terrain, illuminating darkened rock for brief moments before vanishing entirely. The lights often appear to move with purpose, following the paths of long abandoned ore carts, or highlighting areas where work was once concentrated. Paranormal enthusiasts have attempted to capture these lights on camera, sometimes recording faint orbs that defy explanation. Some witnesses say the lights even guide them down certain corridors, only to vanish when they attempt to reach them. Whispering voices are perhaps the most unsettling feature of the Ophir Canyon mines. Explorers frequently report hearing murmurs that echo through the tunnels, soft and fragmented. Sometimes the voices call out names, as though searching for someone, or repeat phrases connected to mining work, instructions for labor, warnings of danger, or the quiet hum of conversation among coworkers. In other instances, the whispers are indecipherable, a blend of languages and tones that seems to emerge from the rock itself. Visitors often describe these moments as deeply unnerving, a feeling that the past is not silent, but actively trying to communicate. Sudden gusts of cold wind add to the eerie environment. Even in summer, the air within certain shafts can drop sharply, chilling those who walk through the tunnels. The gusts often appear without explanation, passing through areas that should be enclosed and still. Some visitors interpret this as a physical manifestation of the miner's presence, a residual energy of those who once worked in the subterranean darkness. Others believe it may be a reminder from the canyon itself, an unseen force asserting its dominion over those who enter its depths. One particularly vivid account comes from a small group of hikers exploring a long-abandoned shaft late in the afternoon. As they progressed, they noticed a dim lantern light swinging in the distance. Curious, they approached slowly, but the light vanished as soon as they drew near. Moments later, faint footsteps echoed along the walls, circling around them, though no one was visible. A chill swept through the tunnel, strong enough to make them shiver, and then a soft whisper seemed to call their names. The hikers quickly retraced their steps, leaving the shaft with a heightened awareness of the presence that lingered unseen. The surrounding landscape of Ophir Canyon adds to the mine's haunting character. Jagged peaks cast long shadows across abandoned entrances and/or processing areas, while rusted remnants of carts and equipment sit half buried in the earth. Even in daylight, shadows can appear to move unexpectedly, creating the illusion of figures darting through corridors or across open spaces. At night, the canyon transforms further. Lantern lights, faint whispers, and sudden cold drafts heighten the sense that the past is very much alive. Local residents often share stories passed down through generations about the mine's supernatural reputation. They speak of miners who died in collapses, succumbing to falls or suffocation, their spirits remaining tethered to the tunnels. Some claim that the apparitions act as warnings, guiding visitors away from unstable areas or drawing attention to hazards long forgotten. Others believe that the lights and sounds are a way for the miners to continue their work in the only way possible, through lingering echoes and fleeting manifestations. Paranormal investigators have recorded unusual activity in the Ophir Canyon mines, including unexplained audio phenomena, sudden temperature drops, and shadowy figures captured on infrared cameras. Some investigators report the sensation of being followed or observed, even when no one is present. In one case, a teen placed a voice recorder in a narrow shaft, and, upon playback, captured faint whispers, repeating phrases like, "Look out," and "Keep going," despite the tunnel being sealed at both ends. The Ophir Canyon mines are more than abandoned mining operations. They are a window into the lives and deaths of those who once inhabited them. The ghostly figures, lantern lights, whispering voices, and sudden gusts of cold wind serve as a bridge between the present and a past that refuses to be forgotten. Visitors leave the tunnels with a sense that something endures beneath the mountains, a presence tied to the rock, the darkness, and the labor of miners long gone. The Stockton mines in Toole County, Utah, are among the most enigmatic and haunted relics of the state's mining era. Carved deep into the mountainsides, these tunnels were once alive with the clatter of pickaxes, the rumble of ore carts, and the voices of miners chasing silver, gold, and lead. Today, the mines are silent, abandoned to time and the elements. Yet countless visitors and paranormal enthusiasts report encounters that suggest the past is far from gone. Phantom miners are said to labor endlessly in the tunnels. Shadowy forms vanish into walls, and the faint echoes of voices call warnings to anyone brave enough to explore. Flickering lanterns, appearing without source, illuminate the darkness for brief moments, adding to the uncanny atmosphere of the mines. Mining in Stockton began in the late 1800s, during the height of Utah's mining boom. Workers, many of them immigrants from Europe, descended into narrow tunnels with only lanterns and basic tools to guide them. Life was perilous. Accidents, collapses, and explosions were common, and many miners never emerged from the shafts. Those who perished left behind tools, helmets, and the faint imprint of their labor. Over time, the tunnels and buildings fell into disrepair. Yet locals say the energy of those lost remains, and it manifests in ways both subtle and startling. Visitors report feeling an immediate change in atmosphere when entering the Stockton mines. The air grows heavy and cold, carrying the sense of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Many have described seeing ghostly figures in miners' garb, moving silently along the walls or down the tunnels. These apparitions appear and disappear suddenly, sometimes vanishing into solid rock or slipping through collapsed passages. Witnesses often describe the feeling of being observed even when nothing is visible, an invisible presence that follows, waits, and watches with a quiet persistence. Flickering lanterns are a recurring feature of Stockton's supernatural reputation. Hikers and explorers have seen small glows appear in empty shafts, swinging gently as though held by invisible hands. These lights often move methodically, tracing paths once traveled by workers or illuminating areas where mining activity was once concentrated. Attempts to approach or photograph the lanterns frequently result in their disappearance, leaving only darkness and the eerie impression that something is just beyond perception, continuing work from a time long past. Shadowy forms are another hallmark of Stockton mines. Visitors describe humanoid silhouettes that glide along walls or across corridors, pausing occasionally before vanishing into the rock. Some of these figures appear to interact with the environment, moving carts, leaning over ledges, or bending to strike at invisible ore. The experience is both mesmerizing and unsettling. The forms are rarely aggressive, but their presence is undeniable, leaving witnesses with a lingering sense of unease. Long after they leave the tunnels, the mines are also known for the ghostly echoes of voices. Explorers often hear faint murmurs, warnings, or names called out from deep within the shafts. The sounds are sometimes intelligible, other times a disjointed whisper. Like fragments of conversations carried through the rock, visitors report the voices as urging caution, watch out, go back, or simply calling a miner's name. These auditory phenomena seem to come from multiple directions at once, amplifying the sense that the tunnels are alive with memory and residual energy. One group of paranormal investigators recounted a particularly chilling encounter. While documenting one of the lower shafts, they noticed a lantern flickering far down the corridor. As they moved closer, a shadowy figure appeared at the edge of their flashlight beam, standing motionless for several moments. Then came the sound of footsteps, faint but deliberate, echoing along the tunnel walls. The figure suddenly vanished, yet the footsteps continued for a few seconds longer, accompanied by a soft, metallic clink like a pickaxe striking rock. The investigators left shortly afterward, shaken by the undeniable presence they had experienced. The physical remnants of the Stockton mines add to their haunting ambience. Rusted carts and rails remain in the corridors, and timbers from collapsed shafts jut sharply from walls. Even in daylight, shadows seem to move with a life of their own, giving the impression of figures flitting through the tunnels. At night, the effect is amplified. Lanterns appear without explanation, echoes multiply unnaturally, and the wind carries whispers that seem almost human. The combination of history, isolation, and the scale of the ruins creates an atmosphere that is difficult to dismiss, even for skeptics. Local lore surrounding the mines emphasizes respect and caution. Residents recount tales of miners lost to collapses and explosions, whose spirits remain tethered to the shafts they once worked. Many believe that the ghostly manifestations are not malicious, but serve as warnings to the living, guiding them away from unstable areas or reminding them of the dangers inherent in the mines. Visitors often emerge with a renewed sense of reverence for the labor and lives that shaped the tunnels, feeling that the presence they encountered is both protective and memorial. Paranormal investigations have consistently captured unexplained phenomena at Stockton mines. Audio recordings sometimes reveal faint whispers or warnings where no person is present. Infrared cameras occasionally record shadowy movements that cannot be explained, and visitors often report sudden drops in temperature or the sensation of being lightly touched, while skeptics may point to acoustics, lighting, and natural effects. Many who have experienced the mines firsthand insist that the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena is beyond mere coincidence. The Stockton mines are more than abandoned tunnels and corroded equipment. They are a living chronicle of human ambition, danger, and tragedy. Phantom miners, flickering lanterns, shadowy forms, and whispered warnings all serve as reminders that the past continues to linger. For those who walk through the shafts, the mines offer a connection to the lives and deaths of the men who once toiled there. They are a place where history is tangible, and the spirits of Stockton's miners continue to labor in silence, forever bound to the tunnels, the rock, and the work that defined their existence. The Silver City mines in Webb County, Utah, are a haunting relic of the state's mining boom, carved into the rugged terrain of the Tintic Mountains. Once bustling with activity, the mines were filled with the clamor of pickaxes striking rock, carts rolling along rails, and the voices of miners shouting instructions or calling to one another. Today, the tunnels are silent and abandoned, yet countless visitors report that the mines are far from empty. Shadowy figures carrying lanterns have been seen drifting through the shafts. The ghostly sound of machinery echoes from the darkness, and sudden cold drafts sweep through tunnels long devoid of human presence, leaving an unsettling awareness that the past has not entirely faded. Silver City rose to prominence in the late 1800s as prospectors discovered veins of silver and lead in the surrounding mountains. Life in the mines was arduous and dangerous. Miners descended into narrow tunnels, often with only dim lanterns for light, working long hours in dust-filled air. The risk of collapses, explosions, and suffocation was constant, and many miners never saw daylight again. These men left behind not only the tunnels they carved, but also a lingering presence, which some believe has manifested in ghostly forms that continue to haunt the shafts and abandoned buildings. Visitors often sense an immediate change upon approaching the mines. The air feels heavier, and shadows seem to move where no wind or light could cause them. Many report seeing ghostly figures dressed in miners' attire, moving along the corridors or near old ore carts, sometimes carrying lanterns that illuminate the walls in a flickering glow. These figures appear briefly and vanish just as suddenly, giving the impression of workers endlessly performing tasks long after death. Witnesses describe the apparitions as silent, methodical, and deliberate, moving with the familiarity of someone returning to the work they knew in life. Phantom machinery sounds are a common phenomenon at Silver City. These sounds often emerge in completely empty tunnels, where no equipment remains. Paranormal enthusiasts have recorded such noises on audio devices, capturing the eerie metallic clangs and hums that defy explanation. Some theorists suggest that the sounds are residual energy from the miners' work, replaying through the tunnels like a ghostly memory of labor long past. Cold drafts add to the haunting atmosphere of Silver City. Even on warm days, sudden gusts of icy air sweep through shafts, brushing against visitors and sending shivers down their spines. These temperature drops often occur in areas where there should be no airflow, reinforcing the impression that the mines are inhabited by unseen presences. Some claim that these cold spots are tied to the spirits of miners lost in collapses, their energy lingering in the tunnels, a chilling reminder of the dangers that once defined the site. One account comes from a small group of hikers exploring the lower tunnels of Silver City. As they moved deeper into a shaft, a dim lantern light appeared in the distance, swinging gently as if carried by an invisible miner. The group followed, but the light vanished when approached. Shortly after, they heard the sound of footsteps echoing along the walls, followed by a faint clanging that resembled a pickaxe striking rock. The noises moved around them, coming from multiple directions, creating a disorienting sensation. A sudden cold gust swept past, chilling them instantly, and they left the tunnel with an undeniable sense of having witnessed something beyond explanation. The landscape of Silver City enhances its ghostly reputation. Rusted ore carts and broken timbers litter the mountainside, while crumbling buildings and rusted smokestacks tower over collapsed shafts. Even in daylight, shadows play tricks on the eyes, giving the illusion of movement among the ruins. At night, the effect intensifies. Flickering lights appear where none exists, and distant sounds echo unnaturally through the valleys. creating an environment that feels alive with unseen activity. The combination of history, isolation, and decay fosters an atmosphere that is both haunting and compelling, drawing curious visitors. Despite the risks, local lore speaks of miners who perished in early collapses, their spirits tied to the tunnels and machinery they once operated. Residents claim the ghostly figures are not malevolent, but remain vigilant, moving through the mines as they did in life. The lanterns are thought to be a guide, illuminating paths where danger once lurked, while the phantom sounds serve as reminders of the miners' labor and the lives lost to the unforgiving mountains. These stories are passed down with a mixture of respect and caution, warning visitors to tread carefully and remember the history embedded in the rocks. Paranormal investigations continue to capture unusual phenomena at Silver City. Audio devices record faint whispers and metallic clanks in sealed tunnels. Cameras occasionally capture shadowy figures or moving lights, and visitors frequently report sudden drops in temperature or the sensation of being lightly brushed by unseen hands. While some skeptics attribute these occurrences to acoustics, wind, or trickery of light, those who experience them firsthand often describe a feeling that is impossible to ignore, a persistent presence rooted in history and memory. The Silver City mines are more than abandoned tunnels and corroded machinery. They are a living testament to the ambition, labor, and loss that defined Utah's mining era. Shadowy miners, flickering lanterns, phantom sounds, and sudden cold drafts remind visitors that the past endures within these walls. Those who enter the shafts are confronted with a history that is tangible and immediate, a connection to the men who worked, suffered, and sometimes died in these tunnels. The Park City gold mines in Summit County, Utah, stand as a haunting testament to the state's mining legacy. Once a hive of activity during the gold rush, the mines were filled with the constant clatter of pickaxes, the creak of ore carts rolling along tracks, and the voices of miners calling instructions or checking on one another. Today, the tunnels lie abandoned, yet many visitors report that the mines are far from empty. Ghostly apparitions pace the shafts, lanterns flicker without any power source, and whispers echo through the corridors, sometimes guiding explorers, other times issuing warnings. Shadowy figures appear suddenly along the walls or disappearing into solid rock, leaving an eerie impression that the miners' presence lingers long after their deaths. Mining in Park City began in the late 1800s, drawing prospectors and laborers from across the nation. Life in the mines was grueling and dangerous. Workers descended into narrow shafts with lanterns for light, using pickaxes and shovels to extract gold from the rock. Collapses, explosions, and exposure to toxic dust were common, and many miners never left the tunnels alive. Those who perished were often buried within the mountains or lost to the depths of the shafts, their labor and lives ending abruptly. It is said that the energy of these lost miners remains, manifesting as apparitions and unexplained phenomena that continue to haunt the mines. Visitors often report an immediate sense of unease upon entering the Park City gold mines. The air feels heavy, the light muted, and shadows seem to shift unnaturally along the walls. Ghostly figures are frequently observed, pacing the shafts, their movements deliberate and measured. Some appear to be carrying lanterns, illuminating sections of the tunnels with a flickering glow before vanishing as mysteriously as they appeared. Witnesses describe the apparitions as dressed in period miner attire, with hats and work clothes that seem to belong to another era. Their presence is fleeting but unmistakable, leaving a sense that the past is still very much alive within the rock. Flickering lights are another common phenomenon. Explorers often see small glows swing along old beams or drift through the tunnels, illuminating areas where miners once worked. These lights appear without explanation, turning on and off seemingly at random, and sometimes moving along pathways long abandoned. Some visitors report that the lights guide them through the shafts, while others claim they vanish when approached, adding a sense of mystery and caution. Paranormal investigators have captured these lights on camera, often recording brief flares that appear and disappear with no physical source. Whispering voices are perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the mine's hauntings. Many visitors hear faint murmurs that echo through the tunnels, sometimes calling out names or issuing warnings. Other times, the voices are more cryptic, repeating fragments of conversations or giving guidance that seems to come from another time. The whispers can come from multiple directions at once, reinforcing the feeling that the tunnels are alive with the memories of the miners. Some explorers interpret these voices as protective, warning of danger ahead, while others sense a sorrowful longing in the tone, as if the miners are reaching out to be remembered. Shadowy figures are often reported alongside the lights and voices. Visitors describe human-shaped silhouettes moving along walls or disappearing suddenly into the rock. These figures sometimes appear to interact with their environment, leaning over or carts, crouching as if picking up tools, or pacing near collapsed shafts. While the apparitions are rarely aggressive, their presence is unmistakable, leaving an impression of a workforce that continues its labor beyond the veil of death. Many who have encountered these forms describe a mixture of awe and unease, a feeling that the past and present are overlapping in ways that cannot be easily explained. One memorable account comes from a small team of explorers who spent the night in one of the lower shafts. As they walked deeper into the tunnel, a flickering lantern appeared in the distance, bobbing gently along a corridor. When they approached, a shadowy figure materialized nearby, pacing slowly along the walls. Suddenly, the figure vanished, but faint footsteps continued to echo through the shaft. The team also reported hearing whispered warnings, urging them to turn back from a section of the tunnel that had collapsed years before. Chilled and shaken, the explorers left the mines with a profound sense that the past was not entirely gone. The physical remnants of the mines enhanced their haunting nature. Rusted carts and broken tracks lie scattered across tunnels, while timbers from old supports jut sharply from the walls. Even during daylight, shadows seem to move independently, creating the illusion of figures flitting along the corridors. At night, the effect intensifies. Lanterns appear, voices echo, and sudden cold drafts sweep through the shafts, heightening the sense that the miner's presence is not only imagined, but very real. Local lore preserves the stories of the miners who perished in accidents, collapses, and exposure to harsh conditions. Residents speak of ghostly apparitions as protective presences, guiding the living away from danger, while continuing their eternal work in the tunnels. The flickering lights, phantom sounds, and whispering voices are seen as manifestations of the miners' lingering energy, a reminder of the toil, sacrifice, and lives that shaped the Park City gold mines. Paranormal investigations continue to document unexplained activity at the mines. Audio recordings capture whispers and footsteps in areas where no human presence exists. Cameras occasionally record fleeting shadows and lights that defy explanation, and visitors frequently report sudden chills or the sensation of being brushed by an unseen hand. Even those who approach the mines with skepticism often admit that the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena is difficult to dismiss. The Park City gold mines are more than abandoned tunnels and rusting machinery. They are a living testament to ambition, labor, and the tragedies that marked Utah's mining history. Ghostly miners, flickering lanterns, whispering voices, and sudden cold drafts serve as a bridge between past and present. Visitors who enter the shafts are confronted with the lives of those who labored and died within these tunnels, experiencing a connection that is both haunting and unforgettable. The Mammoth Mine in Toole County, Utah, is a chilling remnant of the state's mining past, carved deep into the rugged hillsides and steep canyons of the region. Once a hub of activity during Utah's mineral boom, the mine was alive with the sound of pickaxes striking rock, carts rolling along rails, and the voices of miners calling instructions or checking on one another. Today, the tunnels lie silent, abandoned, and crumbling, yet many visitors report that the mine is far from empty. Phantom figures are said to wander the shafts. Ghostly pickaxes strike rock that no living hand touches, and lanterns flicker in abandoned chambers as if carried by unseen miners. Cold spots and sudden chills sweep through the tunnels unexpectedly, leaving those who explore them with a sense that the past is still very much alive. Mining at Mammoth began in the late 1800s, drawing men from across the country in search of fortune. Collapses, explosions, and respiratory hazards were constant threats. Many miners perished within the tunnels, leaving their tools, lanterns, and often their lives behind. Over time, the shafts and buildings fell into decay, but locals and visitors alike report that the energy of the lost miners lingers. Their presence manifests as shadows, sounds, and sudden drops in temperature that cannot be explained by natural causes alone. Visitors often notice a change in the atmosphere immediately upon entering the Mammoth mine. The air feels heavier, the darkness deeper, and shadows appear to shift along walls in ways that defy the light. Many report seeing phantom figures moving through the corridors, often dressed in period miner attire. These apparitions appear with startling realism, pacing along the tunnels, bending as if to strike rock, or vanishing suddenly into solid walls. Witnesses describe the figures as deliberate, their movements echoing the labor that once filled the mine with sound and motion. Ghostly pickaxes are a frequent occurrence in the Mammoth mine. Visitors have described hearing the unmistakable sound of metal striking stone, though no person is visible. The strikes come from various points in the tunnels, sometimes echoing from deep shafts, other times close enough to feel as if the phantom miner is right beside them. The effect is unnerving. It is as though the labor of the past continues, the rhythm of work repeating long after the mine itself has fallen silent. Some explorers have attempted to follow the sound to its source, only to find empty tunnels and intact rock, reinforcing the impression that these strikes are the work of spirits rather than trickery. Flickering lanterns appear throughout the Mammoth mine, often in the distance along darkened corridors or in chambers where no light source exists. The glow swings gently, illuminating walls or tools left behind for decades, before vanishing without explanation. Some visitors report that the lanterns appear to guide them, casting light along paths that were once heavily traveled by miners. Others claim the lanterns retreat when approached, leaving them enveloped in darkness and heightening the sense of being observed by unseen eyes. Paranormal investigators have captured these lights on video, noting their sudden appearance and disappearance, and their movements that suggest intent rather than random reflection. Cold spots and sudden chills are another hallmark of the Mammoth mine's haunting. Even on warm days, icy drafts sweep through the tunnels unpredictably, brushing against skin and sending shivers down the spine. These drops in temperature often occur in enclosed areas where airflow should be minimal, leading many to believe that the cold is tied to the lingering presence of miners who perished within the shafts. The combination of sound, sight, and sensation contributes to an atmosphere that is both eerie and palpable, making the mine a compelling destination for those drawn to the paranormal. One particularly striking account comes from a team of explorers who spent the night mapping a section of the lower tunnels. As they moved through a narrow corridor, a lantern appeared in the distance, casting a warm, flickering glow along the walls. Moments later, the sound of pickaxes striking rock echoed from a nearby chamber. When they approached, a shadowy figure appeared briefly at the corner of their vision, dressed in miner's clothing, before disappearing entirely. Soon after, a cold gust swept past, leaving them chilled to the bone. The explorers left the tunnel shaken, with a profound sense that the past had reached out to them through the layers of stone and time. The ruins of the Mammoth mine enhanced its haunted reputation. Rusted carts, broken tracks, and splintered timbers lie scattered throughout the tunnels and abandoned chambers. Even in daylight, shadows create the illusion of movement along walls and corridors, and the flickering of sunlight across broken machinery can appear as lantern light carried by invisible hands. At night, the effect is intensified. Lanterns glow in impossible places, whispers echo through long-abandoned shafts, and sudden chills strike without warning, creating an environment that seems alive with unseen activity. Local lore emphasizes the mine's dangerous past and its spectral presence. Miners lost in collapses and accidents are believed to remain tethered to the tunnels, their spirits continuing the labor they could not finish in life. Some say the ghostly pickaxes, flickering lanterns, and phantom figures are warnings, guiding visitors away from dangerous areas or unstable passages. Others view the manifestations as echoes of memory, the energy of human toil preserved in stone and metal. Stories are passed down with reverence, reminding explorers that the mine is not simply a historical site but a living repository of lives and labor that once defined the region. Paranormal investigations continue to document unexplained activity within the Mammoth Mine. Audio recordings often capture faint pickaxe strikes, footsteps, and whispered voices. Infrared cameras sometimes record shadowy forms moving through empty shafts. Visitors report sudden temperature drops and the sensation of being touched or followed by unseen presences. While skeptics may point to acoustics or natural drafts, many first-hand experiences suggest a force tied to memory, labor, and a lingering presence of those who worked and died within the tunnels. The Alta Mines in Salt Lake County, Utah, are a haunting reminder of the state's storied mining history, carved into the rugged slopes of the Wasatch Mountains. Once alive with activity during Utah's mining boom, these tunnels were filled with the sound of pickaxes striking rock, the creak of ore carts rolling along rails, and the voices of miners calling instructions or warnings. Today, the mines stand abandoned, their shafts dark and silent. Yet countless visitors report that the past is far from gone. Shadowy figures are seen moving through the tunnels. Ghostly lights flicker deep underground, and whispers echo through empty shafts, sometimes offering guidance, sometimes issuing warnings. Many who enter also speak of an unseen presence, a sensation of weight as if hands warm or cold are brushing against them, steering them along or urging them back from danger. Mining at Alta began in the mid-1800s, attracting prospectors and laborers from across the nation. Gold, silver, and lead were the prime targets, and the work was grueling and hazardous. Miners spent long hours in narrow, poorly lit tunnels, breathing in dust and smoke while swinging pickaxes to extract ore. The constant threat of collapses, cave-ins, and explosions made every day dangerous, and many men never emerged alive. Those who perished left their tools and lanterns behind, and it is believed that their spirits remained tethered to the tunnels they had worked in life, continuing their labor in spectral form. Visitors to the Alta mines often notice an immediate shift in atmosphere. The air becomes heavier, the darkness more suffocating, and shadows seem to move at the edge of perception. Ghostly figures, dressed in period mining attire, are frequently reported, pacing silently along the tunnels or bending as if striking at rock. These apparitions appear and vanish suddenly, often at the corner of vision, leaving explorers with the sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Witnesses describe the figures as deliberate, their movements echoing the rhythm and diligence of miners continuing work beyond the veil of death. Flickering lights are a recurring phenomenon in the Alta mines. Visitors often see lantern-like glows drifting along tunnels or appearing in abandoned chambers where no source of light exists. The lights sometimes illuminate walls, old ore carts, or tools left behind for decades, moving in ways that seem purposeful, almost as though guiding explorers along pathways long traveled by miners. Others report that the lights retreat when approached, leaving darkness in their wake, enhancing the sense of mystery and unease. Paranormal investigators have captured these lights on video, noting their sudden appearance, movement, and disappearance without any logical explanation. Whispering voices are perhaps the most disquieting feature of the mines. Many explorers report hearing faint murmurs that echo through the shafts, often repeating fragments of conversation from long ago. Sometimes the voices offer warnings, stop, careful, or go back. At other times, they are less specific, a soft hum or indistinct words that seem to drift from multiple directions simultaneously. Some witnesses interpret these whispers as protective, guiding the living away from danger, while others feel a sorrowful presence, reaching out as if seeking acknowledgement or remembrance. Visitors also frequently report the sensation of unseen hands or pressure guiding them through the tunnels. Some describe brushes against their shoulders or backs, subtle nudges that influence the direction of travel. The feeling is not always comforting. It can be sudden and chilling, heightening the awareness of being accompanied by unseen presences. One particularly vivid account comes from a group of paranormal investigators spending the night in the lower shafts. As they proceeded down a narrow corridor, a faint lantern light appeared in the distance, swinging gently. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materialized, pacing slowly along the wall. When the team tried to approach, the figure vanished, but faint footsteps echoed behind them, accompanied by a whisper calling one of the team members by name. A cold gust swept past them, sending shivers through their bodies. The group exited the tunnel, shaken but convinced they had encountered the lingering presence of the miners. The physical remnants of the Alta mines enhanced their spectral reputation. Rusted carts and broken rails lie scattered across tunnels, while timbers from collapsed shafts jut sharply from walls and ceilings. Even during daylight, shadows can create the illusion of movement, giving the impression of miners flitting along the corridors. At night, the effect intensifies. Ghostly lights, whispered voices, sudden chills, and shadowy figures transform the abandoned mine into an environment alive with unseen activity. Local lore emphasizes the tragic history of the mines. Many stories recount miners lost in collapses, accidents, and harsh working conditions, their spirits remaining tethered to the tunnels where they met their fate. The flickering lights, whispers, and shadowy figures are seen as both memorial and warning reminders of the labor, danger, and lives that defined Alta's mining era. Residents pass these stories down with reverence, cautioning those who explore the shafts to respect the mines and tread carefully, mindful that they are entering a place of both history and lingering presence. Paranormal investigations continue to document unexplained activity within the Alta mines. Audio devices often capture faint voices or footsteps in areas where no one is present. Cameras occasionally record shadowy figures or drifting lights, and visitors frequently report sudden drops in temperature or the sensation of being touched by unseen hands. While skeptics may attribute these experiences to environmental factors, many first-hand accounts insist the phenomena are beyond natural explanation. There you have 25 haunted mines in Utah that hide ancient secrets. From abandoned silver shafts to sprawling gold complexes, these mines are more than relics of industry. They are homes to spirits who never left the darkness. Shadowy figures, ghostly lights, and whispers echoing through tunnels remind us that some histories never stay buried, and some souls never emerge. If tonight's journey through Utah's haunted mines sent chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for more explorations of haunted locations, forgotten secrets, and restless spirits. Keep your lanterns close, your courage strong, and your senses sharp, because in Utah's haunted mines, the darkness never sleeps, and the spirits are always watching. Stay brave, stay curious, and good night.